You're listening to 106.9 The Duck. The highest level of premium radio entertainment you can get using a former underground Nazi radio signal usually reserved for emergency broadcasts to the CIA in the 1980s. Thanks, federal government sale. Welcome, children and lovers, to this fine broadcast to our last hope. Holy fucking tucking Nazis podcast, the golly shucks, 9 out of 10 of you are dicks, so what's the difference if we suck? We're bringing pain and panic, don't put one over the other. Two goons who should have died in 99 like Hogan brother. A stack of super rat stresses, two humans undercover, trying to become legal citizens in the civil circus of ignorance. Drunk and high on life, so please pardon our belligerence. Anti-vaxxers and creationists all in a tournament of ignorance to the possession of a hood ornament. With Jesus on the cross and 3 cheeses on the crust, 2 blacks in every casket, that's the God in which they trust. Our opinions so offensive to perspectives grim and proper. Streets are paved with gold, turns out there's pools of blood and copper.
Podcastemonium caught a venereal disease, but it's all okay because we douche with Febreze.
Podcastemonium fondled your mom. You can probably catch the clip on pleaseremain.com.
Podcastemonium makes the toilets flush up. I couldn't believe it either, so I was just like, yep.
Podcastemonium shit's at twice the speed of sound. That's a Mach 2 poo, and we're dropping it by the pound.
We could do this the old-fashioned way, or could do it on the air.
Wait. Hold on. This is fascinating. This is neither moonshine or white dog.
No, this is clear whiskey. So for those of you listening at home, we are going to sample for your listening. Oh, I'm sorry, you're not viewing us. For your listening pleasure,
for your various sensory inputs,
we are going to be testing out the new Jacob's Ghost white whiskey from Jim Beam.
New being a relative term. New considering distilling as a art.
All right, so why don't you take your shot? Tell me what you think about it. And down the hatch it goes, folks. What are we thinking?
Oh God.
Oh, wow.
Oh, God.
It gets you by the balls, doesn't it?
It got me by something.
You're going to be okay over there.
It tastes like Cuervo and Beam had a baby, and I got to tell you, they should have terminated it.
Oh, you didn't like it?
Not at all.
No?
Terribly sorry, sir.
No, fuck, I liked it.
You enjoy. Oh, my God.
Drink some beer. It'll be okay. Beer is good for you. Welcome, everyone, to episode 4 of Podcastemonium. The Burro is dying in his seat, but I am Emperor Corndog the Mighty.
He is the mightiest monarch that I have ever served under. All hail Emperor Corndog and his Corndogian empire.
Yes. So, welcome once again. We are on episode 4, if you could believe it. We've been doing this podcast for about a year, and we are finally up to episode 4.
We're officially a quarterly release.
I think the plan when we first started, we were going to be doing this weekly, and then it became monthly, and then it became quarterly.
I barely defecate weekly. I couldn't even find myself in the studio to record such a program on a regular schedule, but I've enjoyed every moment of it.
And indeed. And that's why we keep coming back from Moa. Last time we talked with some of you folks was around the Christmas time, and we talked about the Terminator Genesis trailer as well as the Force Awakens trailer. We got a new Force Awakens teaser trailer.
The appropriately titled Force Awakens teaser trailer 2.
Yes. So that one was pretty cool because we got to see... we got to see
the ghost.
Yes,
Jacob's ghost.
Yeah, he's dying from Jacob's ghost. Perhaps doing the on-air taste test of whiskey,
if you can call it that.
It was whiskey. Come on, man, that's not bad.
No.
Bad.
It's got a tang on the front of it that reminded me a lot of Cuervo, but beyond that, it was very whiskey-ish.
Yeah.
It definitely dodged all my expectations because just looking at it, I would make the assumption it was either an unaged, a corn whiskey, or a white dog. But they specifically produce a full Jim Beam, and then they work it into the ghost configuration. So bravo on them. It's just not my blend.
Yeah. All right. Fair enough. So we have an epic show for you tonight. Today, whenever you're hearing this, we're going to be talking about a lot of things on this show. We're going to be talking about the new release this week, which is Mortal Kombat X.
Yes.
Which is something we've been waiting for quite a while, but unfortunately, neither of us have picked it up yet because there's been some controversy. We'll get into that momentarily. Mm-hmm. We will also share our thoughts on Resident Evil Revelations 2.
I enjoy it.
Yes, I enjoy it as well. I'm definitely excited to see more of it. You've played it. You've beaten it already, haven't you?
I've beat it 3 times.
Holy shit.
I enjoy that game.
My God. We're also going to follow up on our thoughts on Wrestlemania, which was last month. We actually were in San Jose for WrestleMania weekend, but we did not go to WrestleMania. We actually went to SHIMMER 71.
Which was a bomb-ass show.
Hell yes, it was fantastic, so we're definitely going to give our thoughts on that. We're also going to, in our third segment, our third segment is almost always our Keeping It Real segment. That's where we bring everybody to tears and depression and all that sorts of fun stuff, because we're just such lovely, fun guys that we got to bring you come crashing right the fuck down every so often.
Got to call America on its bullshit.
Yeah, last time around we talked about the atrocities that were happening in Missouri.
Ferguson, Missouri, Mike Brown, the shit that's going on there, shit that continues to go on.
It's still going on. My God, man.
We'll get there.
We'll get there. And then we got some fun stuff planned for the fourth segment, which is usually pretty chaotic, but that's what we're all about. We're Podcastemonium.
I'm going to be surprised by the topic when I hear it. Hopefully I will live up to your expectations.
I hope so. So let's dive right into this thing.
Uh-huh.
We are on the release weekend of Mortal Kombat X, a game that I have been looking forward to for a long, long time.
I've been really excited about it myself. I had planned on getting it on launch day. I'd pre-ordered it. I was really excited, saw the characters they were announcing. But the big turd in that punch bowl came down to be the nature of the distribution of those actual characters.
Mm-hmm.
They've been very forward in promoting the fact that Jason and Predator are going to be in the game. They're like the big unveils, the reveals, the surprise entry run-ins at WrestleMania, if you will.
Right.
But it turns out they're not even in the fucking box.
Nope.
For an additional $30, $20 if you're buying digitally, which I don't do.
Mm-hmm.
Then you get the advertised characters, the Combat Pack, the $30 pack, what is essentially a pre-season pass type deal, available to purchase day one alongside the game, and then over the course of the next several weeks, you'll be releasing the characters that they had advertised, Predator and Jason most eponymously. No, not
They had a couple other ones. They had Tanya was in there, right?
Tanya's in there, and Tremor.
And Tremor, okay.
Two characters which, honestly, I'm not too attached to. I'm excited to see.
I love Tanya, so I'm kind of... Yeah.
I'm excited to see them, but I mean, the big flagship, let's be real, it was Jason.
Jason and Predator.
After Freddy Krueger came to Mortal Kombat 9, everybody was super geeked for it,
right.
And they're talking, when are we going to get Jason? When are we going to get Michael Myers?
And those couple of teaser trailers were like the biggest fucking things. Because, I mean, we were seeing updates on the game. We're like, fuck yeah, that looks awesome. Can't wait to play it. But when they were like, Jason Voorhees will be in Mortal Kombat X, you're like, oh my fucking God.
Yeah.
Holy shit, I can play as Jason and fuck shit up. And then it got even better because we got the fucking Predator in there.
And all for the mere price of a 50% markup on day one.
And as soon as that news, it was like, oh, you motherfucker. I mean, we knew this was going to be add-ons, but $30 day one. I mean, come the fuck on. You were advertising this before the game came out.
I think that it's frustrating from a couple different directions. One, it's always frustrating that we're getting this super emphasis on DLC. I mean, 10 years ago, we would have called this shit unlockables or bonus content.
Yeah.
Here, it's paid out the box. And I mean, 4 characters, I mean, when you consider what you're getting versus what's in the core game, you're not getting your money's worth out of it. You're paying half the cost of the core game for 4 characters out of, 29?
Yeah. And on top of that, what about Goro? You couldn't get Goro unless you pre-ordered. So you had to be locked into that shit before in advance if you wanted to even get Goro in there either.
Right, and for the record, I will eventually purchase and play the game, but I'm going to wait until we get a bundle edition, a complete collection, if you will.
The complete edition, yeah.
But the other thing that bugs me here is that when I'm reminded of when Xbox One was announced, they were going to do the super hardcore DRM. You had to have online all the time, once a day check-ins, no game sharing, no used, and immediately the gaming community comes out with, this is horse shit. This is not going to fly. We're not going to buy your machine. And what do? They back down. They gave us essentially what we asked for, which was, let's be real, asking them not to really change anything.
Yeah.
This time around, because of who's up front, we're not going to see that same type of reaction, because instead of going, this is horseshit, why are you charging me an extra $30 on top of the game you're already trying to sell me for the characters you're advertising? Instead of questioning that, we're going, oh, fuck, Predator!
Yeah, right.
So it's not going to change. And
It's not,
because all we're doing is setting a precedent.
Yes, and it is industry wide. It is not just Mortal Kombat 10. We can't just sit there and get mad at NetherRealm Studios and Warner Brothers Games for this. I mean, just because they're continuing something there and they're making it even worse. But at the same time, it's like, come on. There's a certain point where it's like, okay, we expect DLC, we expect add-ons, but just I mean, this is ridiculous.
And it's partially our own fault. It started 2 generations ago. I mean, when Madden started doing the collector's editions, they marked them up for $10. It was a test program. They wanted to see if we would pay $10 above base price for a video game that honestly would be considered the complete version rather than the special version.
Right.
And since then, the next generation, the base price went up to $60 from $50. And then after that, you're getting day one DLC thrown on, whether it's a voucher, a download down the road, or just an extra disc that comes in the box, some bonus bullshit content. It's a bed we've made for ourselves by going along with it.
Yes. Oh, yeah, totally. And especially with the free-to-play market, because if you think about what's going on iOS and all that, where essentially they give you a game, it doesn't cost you anything to download it and start playing it, but the whole idea is that they include microtransactions, which basically means that once you get sucked into the game, you have to start paying to continue playing. So it is a pay-to-play system, so free-to-play is horseshit. And the whole idea is to suck you in with more money and then get you addicted to spending money on it. And now we're seeing this with AAA titles. We're seeing this coming in with games that are coming out, $60 games that you bought, you know, day one or whatever, that were costing you $60. You take the game home expecting to get your money's worth, and instead they are making you pay more money.
For the record, Nintendo's not.
Nintendo is not. Nintendo's out of here. They're just like always. They're the good guys. But I mean,
they're putting games forward, fun forward, that type of thing. You can make the argument that moving into mobile is going to turn them into a bunch of pirate groups too. But I'm confident in them because
I trust them.
They've got so much fucking money.
Yes,
they could afford to completely botch the next 20 years of gaming and still be in the black.
Yes.
That is how well they did in the 80s and 90s. They fucking killed it. They are gaming. I don't know where people are talking about they need to be a pure publisher or software designer.
That's fucking horseshit.
I mean, these guys made gaming. They're on the frontier, and they're looking at the DLC model and go, no.
Nope. No, not for us.
Yeah.
Well, I mean, and look at how faithful people continue to be just based on like, hey, Nintendo isn't fucking us in the ass every single game, you know?
They want us to have a game, they want us to play it, they want us to enjoy it and come back for more. You can make the argument that they're recycling titles, but then again, you just played the 9th Call of Duty.
Exactly, right? Exactly. It's like, oh man, there's another Mario game and another Zelda, and you know, I mean, you guys are asking for another Metroid or another Star Fox. It's like, yeah, seriously, there's a new fucking Call of Duty every goddamn year.
And it's easy to rag on them, but, you know, the popularity is waning. But the point still fucking stands. AAA is trying to churn out sequel machines with DLC, expanded content, pay to win, whatever you want to do, microtransactions.
Oh, yeah.
And Nintendo's model is more like, we know you want these titles. We'll give you one or less per generation, and then we will continue to support that game because you're going to love playing it. I mean, you get one Mario Kart per console.
Yeah.
And you play the shit out of it till the next one comes out.
Yeah, and that's why they fucking do so. That's why, even though the Wii U is considered to be kind of like the redheaded stepchild of the current console generation, realistically by most people, when Mario Kart 8 came out and when Super Mario Brothers 3D World and Super Smash Brothers came out, they were the biggest titles that people were talking about.
When you look at the games of the past 2 years that end up being, you know, #1 or super popular, sell 1 million plus, whatever, I think the number is like out of the 12 games that did it, 7 of them are on Nintendo consoles.
Yeah, exactly.
And I can hear you at home screaming right now, Mario Kart got DLC! Mario Kart got DLC! Yeah, it does have DLC, but you know what you got? You got a shit ton for your fucking money.
Yeah.
For $15, $15, I got 16 tracks,
shit,
6 characters, a number of vehicles I can't even begin to imagine, and an entire Skittles Rainbow's worth of Yoshis and Shy Guys.
Yeah, and how long after the game came out did that DLC become available?
6 months, 8 months?
6 months. So once you've played the fuck out of the whole game that you already bought, they give you more for a little extra money. It's an expansion pack is what the fuck it is.
And that's how expansions work.
Yes. So with that coverage, I mean, just a closing note on MKX, I definitely want to play the fuck out of this game.
Oh, hell yeah. It looks amazing.
Yes, it looks incredible. We're getting a new generation. It looks like the storyline is actually taking over like 20-year timeline, something like that, from the end of MK9, and then going 20 years in the future where we're meeting the next generation of Mortal Kombat fighters. So that's fucking awesome.
And I mean, coming off of Mortal Kombat 9, Mortal Kombat 9 was incredible. Nobody expected it. It brought a nice breath of fresh air to 2D fighting, especially coming off of, or in an environment where the 2D fighters that are really popular are these super hardcore, ultra competitive frame counting games like your Blaze Blue, your Guilty Gear, Street Fighters. And
here. Yeah.
It's nice to get something that's so accessible. It's not necessarily low grade or uncompetitive. It's not your kid's 2D fighter, but it is so much more accessible, and it's got so much emphasis on presentation.
Yeah, and the thing is, it was so refreshing, while at the same time, it's giving us all the shit that we already had before.
Yeah,
in a brand new presentation that was mainly focused on story. And it was like, fucking A, man, that was a really, really good way to do it. And for them to take that and continue forward with it with a new game is really exciting.
Because, I mean, everybody in my age group who plays any kinds of fighters gets nostalgic over Mortal Kombat. But it was the style, it was the characters, it was the story, it was the setting that kept you going. You couldn't sit and pretend it was a competitive fighting game. It was really choppy. It played awfully goofy. But my God, was it fun.
Oh, yeah. So, following up on that, we've got another game that came out recently. This is a game that both of you and I were looking forward to. It came out, you picked it up first on PS4?
Yes, I did.
And then I picked it up on Steam, and I played the first episode, but unfortunately my computer needs to be updated terribly. So I didn't get very far, and it was kind of glitchy, and I was having trouble with it. But we're talking about Resident Evil Revelations 2.
Yeah.
Now, the first Revelations was a game that came out and really did wonders, I think, for the series. I think that game, along with The Evil Within and the kind of recent resurgence of survival horror in general, has really pointed Capcom in the direction of like, okay, survival horror is what the fans fucking want.
Exactly.
They just happened to produce this spin-off game for the 3DS that everybody really liked. Right before they produced Resident Evil 6, which was not so well received.
Yeah, that's one way to put it.
Yeah, and then Revelations ends up being the star game that they put out. So, you introduced me to finally getting to play some Revelations, and it seems like the Wii U version is the preferred version.
It's the version I went for. The original version came out on 3DS. It's a Nintendo console, so I vote with your dollar. I support, what I want to support.
Absolutely.
So, I've got all 3 consoles going on at home right now.
And that's the advantage.
It is the advantage, but it does let me pick and choose whose pocket I want money to go in.
For sure.
So, I picked up the Wii U version. That was the one thing that the game was really missing on 3DS was the second analog stick, just to feel a little more natural, a little more comfortable, but it played damn well. And with the Gamepad Pro... Pro Stick Duo, whatever the hell they were calling it, it worked. But the console iteration really did wonders for the game itself. The controls are very tight. It brings the action aspect into a functional form without becoming the focus. It's still sparse monsters, sparse ammunition, a very good atmosphere, very moody, very spooky. It felt like a creepy Resident Evil game, which is something that we hadn't gotten in a long time. That, plus the aesthetic of the maritime theme, just really came together in a nice package that just grabbed me right away, and I couldn't stop playing it.
It was a throwback in disguise. It felt like a new game, but it felt classic. It felt like Resident Evil at the same time, which is exactly what we wanted. We wanted something that was progressive and moving forward, but at the same time, it got back to a point. It got back to the original... what made Resident Evil so good to begin with, but it was not perfect. It still had its elements that could have been improved upon.
It's got its idiosyncrasies, yeah.
Yeah, it was one of those things where the fans, like, in direct rejection of Resident Evil 6, kept pointing to Resident Evil Revelations, which I finally, after all this time, was able to pick up a copy on Xbox 360. I would have gone for the Wii U too if I had one, but I did not. So I got the 360 version, and I've been loving it. And the thing about it is, it's like, man, this is the start of us getting back to classic Resident Evil.
Which brings us to Revelations 2.
That's exactly what I was going to say.
Which is exactly where they landed, is the spirit of classic Resident Evil, everything we loved about it, with modern sensibility. It can fit in with the modern games because it's not using tank controls. It's not using, 2.5-person controls. But it's also not so shooter forward that it's become an action game. It does have its high-paced sections. It does have its fast gunplay moments. But overall, it's about mood. It's about resource management. It's about the characters, and it's about the story. And it controls like a dream as far as Resident Evils go. And I would not be upset if Resident Evil 7 came through with the gameplay aspect of it, the controls, the inventory selection, things like that, unaltered.
Oh yeah, absolutely. If Resident Evil 7 comes along and it's essentially Resident Evil Revelations 2, the gameplay put into a bigger situation, that would be the right thing. And the thing about it, when I say a bigger situation, what I'm referring to is that it feels like Capcom really wants the Resident Evil games to be big, which is strange considering how claustrophobic and really self-contained the first one was. You're in a mansion the entire game, and the mansion's huge, but you're in one interior enclosure the entire way through.
It is claustrophobic and it is enclosed, but it's also very open and exploratory. And
Yes.
that's the one knock I've got against Revelations 2 is it's very linear.
Oh, it's totally okay.
You don't get a whole lot of exploration, and the environments that are there, they provide a solid mood, but they're not nearly as detailed as the old isometrics.
That's true.
So, I mean, that is a bummer, but that's not something that can't be overcome.
No.
I mean, that's really the only thing that got me. I'm trying not to get too much into the story elements because I don't want to spoil it for everyone. And oh my God, are the story elements incredible. Play that shit.
Oh
Anyway.
man, but see, here's the thing: is I've had a taste of a few of it, so I get where it's going, and I'm like, ugh, this is gonna be good. That's why I did finally pick up the PS3 version of it. I am definitely gonna be tearing into that very soon. I'm looking forward to it, but I mean, let's focus on a couple other things. Let's focus on some characters.
Okay.
Because that's the other big thing about Revelations 2. We have the return of Claire Redfield.
Yeah.
We have the return of Barry motherfucking Burton.
Santa Burton.
Yes. And we have the introduction of Barry Burton's daughter, Moira.
Moira Burton. What a spitfire.
Yeah, and then another character, what was her name?
Natalia. Super
Natalia.
Spooky Jones.
Okay.
I don't remember her last name, but it is Natalia.
No relation.
Yes.
So
The characters that they give us are such throwbacks and references that not only does it just give you the warm fuzzies, but it also really does a good job of showing the passage of time. Because I mean, you heard Barry mentioning his family and his kids in the first game, and then you realize that this game is taking place 20 some odd years later, and here she is. Here is everything Barry fought for, and she is getting into the thick of it herself, and that right away just makes you go, oh, Barry, I'm with you. Let's go do this.
Yes. And the other thing too, I wonder about this. Can you recall if Moira was mentioned by name in any of the original Resident Evil games? Because I know for a fact she was mentioned by name in the novels by S.D. Perry.
I don't believe she was mentioned by name in the games.
So I think this could very likely be the first time that we've seen S.D. Perry's work actually
Cross back into the game.
become canon. Yeah, so that's actually pretty fucking cool too, because I do remember reading the books and I go, oh, he's got a daughter. I remember the other daughter's name, but he's got Moira and his other girl.
Moira and Polly.
Okay, yeah, that's it. And so that's just cool in itself, because we're both longtime fans of S.D. Perry novels, which are already pretty freaking old, and seems like pretty much forgotten about by the Resident Evil fan base. So to see something like that finally become canon is pretty fucking awesome.
It's pretty fashionable to bash her books.
That's bullshit.
It's something weird that I've noticed amongst fans. Like, you're either super geeked because you love Resident Evil and you want every little bit of it you can get. Like me, I played Resident Evil Gaiden even though the game is garbage.
Right.
But then there are the other people who are kind of aware of it. They remember the old games. And as soon as you tell them, like, yeah, I read these books, they're like, really? You're a grown adult. Aren't you embarrassed? Like, no, I'm not. It was fun. Fuck you.
Why would they say fuck these people?
These are the same fucking gatekeepers who are like, you're wearing that shirt to impress me. Fuck you.
Fuck you people. You people are retards.
If you're in here jumping in and rejoicing, then, you're here. Jump in. Rejoice. We will celebrate you.
It's supposed to be fun, goddammit.
Anyway, so back on the subject of Revelations 2,
Right.
the game is a love letter all day and all night. If you are a fan of the old Resident Evils, in particular 2 and Code Veronica, not just because of Claire's presence, but just because of the feel of very specific moments. I mean, it's very much a tribute to itself. It's nodding and winking to everybody who's played these games, but it's not something that's so distracting that new players are like, what the fuck are you talking about?
Right.
But whether it's through dialogue or just the visual arrangement of a particular scene or the feel of an environment, as low detail as they may or may not be in some points, it really just makes you go, God damn, that's right. I fucking loved this.
Yes.
And that is a lot of what Evil Within did too.
That's what I was just about to bring up. I was wondering, is it more of a love letter or is it as much of a love letter as Evil Within was?
What I'm enjoying and what the feel I get is that these survival horror games that are starting to come out are cooperating in creating a new environment for the genre.
Gotcha.
So we're entering a new experimental phase. I mean, for a long time, you know, the old horror games, the Silent Hills, the Carrier, the Vampire Knights,
Carrier,
Zombie
Revenge,
you know, Alone in the Dark. All those old games, they felt very much like each other, and it was just about whose setting, whose characters, whose story you enjoyed the most. And I'm not opposed to that coming back and it becoming a new standard for horror games. I mean, a little bit of action elements and precision controlling is nice. That's the one thing I really would have loved from Resident Evil 2. I love that game. I've beat it over 200 times.
Fucking A.
But if I could get an over-the-shoulder precision headshot aiming system, fuck yeah.
Yeah. 2 more games from the old school that have to be mentioned: Blue Stinger and Deep Fear on the Sega Saturn.
Deep Fear.
It's howling at the top of its lungs.
I love shitty old voice acting.
It's so fucking classic. But, you know, it really is. It's kind of the resurgence of that again. And it's the same idea, just kind of fleshed out in a new age.
And, I mean, if you hated Resident Evil 5 and you hated Resident Evil 6, not just because they sucked, but because you loved the games before and you feel betrayed, my God, dive on into Revelations 1 and 2.
And you know what? On a closing note on Revelations 2, it's fucking cheap.
Oh, hell
it's
yeah.
not that expensive. I mean, you can go on Steam and get the season pass for $25. That's how I initially bought the game. But I said, you know what? I gotta have the physical copy. It's $40 for everything included.
I got $40, PS4. What else is coming out on current generation day one? And this is what I'm talking about with like microtransactions and shit. You could have gone digital, 25, got the core game, and then piece on additional things if you wanted, raid mode characters, costumes, things like that. Or for the retail version, you're saving $10, $15, $20 anyway on all that stuff.
Exactly. And that's the thing. That's where we can compare MKX to Revelations 2. MKX comes out $60 game out the gate, but you don't get all the shit that they've been advertising. So if you want all that, you have to pre-order, and you have to pay about $100 fucking dollars. Revelations 2, if you want everything that they've been advertising in one compact package, it's $40 out the fucking gate. Or you can get it for even cheaper if you go digital, if you prefer to go that route. I think Capcom, for once, actually did it good. And I'm sorry to say it, but NetherRealm and Warner Brothers kind of let down.
There's a right way and a wrong way to do this.
Yes. So on that note, we're going to take our first break. And when we come back, we'll be talking some pro wrestling. Wrestling for the ages. Oh, my goodness.
America.
Suplex City, bitch.
Here's John Wayne, America's #1 dramatic movie star, on location. As you can see, making a movie can be pretty tough going. But free-swinging He-Man parts are what John Wayne loves to play and what the audience loves to see him in.
Okay, cut.
When the cameras stop, John Wayne takes time out to enjoy his favorite cigarette, Camel. Let's hear what he thinks about Camels in his own words.
Well, after you've been making a lot of strenuous scenes, you like to sit back and enjoy a cool, mild, good-tasting cigarette. And that's just what Camels are. Mild and good-tasting, pack after pack. I know, I've been smoking them for 20 years. So why don't you try them yourself? You'll see what I mean.
Yes, try them yourself, and you'll discover the secret of Camel's extra enjoyment. Smoke-only Camels for 30 days. For mildness and flavor, Camels agree with more people than any other cigarette.
And we return. And we return.
Hi, buddies.
Yes. Shall we update with beer? So, yes. WrestleMania
weekend passed some 2-3 weeks ago. We were unable to attend the event proper because, well, budgetary constraints. We had comforted ourselves initially at the fact that, well, at least we weren't missing WrestleMania, 10 years ago, but then it turns out it was the best show in 10 years.
Yes. But you did not see it.
I did not.
When was the last WrestleMania you've actually seen?
Schnauzer, 06?
So that would have been 22 in Chicago?
Yes.
John Cena versus Triple H?
That's the one.
Okay. And so, yeah, so I've kept up on the last couple, but like many, I'm updating our beer as we go. The Burro, by the way, is drinking Dawn of the Red, and this is the first time you're trying it out. So being that it's named after your favorite horror movie, let me see how you feel.
Ninkasi Brewing Company, they make some awesome stuff. Let's see how we go. Ooh, that is nice.
Yeah, it's pretty light on the uptake, and it just got that nice little back of the tongue ale feel.
It's got that touch of bitter citric India Pale up front, which I really like, and then it just mellows out, and it goes down like, well, the apocalypse.
Yes. So the thing is, we had every plan last year of going to WrestleMania once we found out it was going to be in the Bay Area. Because, of course, we live in Northern California, so it wouldn't be that far. We did go to San Jose, but we didn't go to see WrestleMania. We went to see Shimmer 71. Which
show was epic.
Yes, which we will talk about momentarily. But we do want to touch on Mania for just a minute. Because I did watch the show after the fact. I wasn't able to watch it live, unfortunately, which sucked. But I did catch up on it a couple days later. And holy fuck, man. It really was a damn good show. It was one of those that it's like, this just shouldn't have been that good. With the kind of content that WWE has been putting out on the regular over the last couple of years, especially now in the PG era, we just don't expect WrestleMania to be that good. I mean, you expect it to be a good show because it's like the one time of the year they actually seem to try to do a good wrestling show.
We expect it to be an entertaining show.
Yes, we expect it to be something solid. We expect spectacle. We expect big entrances. We expect, good matches. But, it's not like it was in its heyday. We don't get the epic, ultimate challenge showdowns. We don't get any of that kind of stuff anymore.
I feel like WWE's become more of a genre of entertainment all its own rather than being the grand wrestling venue.
That's what it is.
It seems to have done a lot to alienate the wrestling audience while maintaining an audience of its own.
Yeah, it's a traveling circus is what it is. It's a fucking circus. It's a circus that disguises itself as a soap opera. And it has really distanced itself away from professional wrestling. Whereas WrestleMania seems to be like the one show where they just say, let's put everything in the ring. The two stars or beyond stars, beyond two, tag matches and so forth, that we want to see in the ring fighting each other. Let's make it all happen in the ring. And they really cut back on all the segments and the bullshit and the promos and all this nonsense and really focus on what we really care about. So with that being said, this year was a surprise in that it was a really, really good show. Cool. So we opened the show with this big epic Intercontinental title ladder match, which is like I think it was 6 or 7 guys involved. And,
wow.
Yeah, and the thing is, they really went for the big spots in this one again. Dean Ambrose took a nasty crash and burn spot where he just went off the top of a ladder and crashed through another ladder and broke it in half and like split his head open or something like that.
Wow, I would not expect that.
Yeah, it was a pretty gnarly bump, and it was something like we wouldn't expect something like that. But they really went for it on that match, and the interesting conclusion is that Daniel Bryan won it. Now, Daniel Bryan, of course, won the big show last year. He won the World Heavyweight Championship. He had the big celebration at the end of the show. So we see him winning, but we see him going from winning in the main event for the world title to winning in the opening match for the Intercontinental title just a year apart. So it's kind of like, well, okay, it's a bittersweet thing for Daniel Bryan fans. But all in total, I mean, we really couldn't complain about the match itself.
What a nonsensical continuity.
Yeah, right? Within a year. And by the way, the guy missed most of last year due to Nick's surgery. So it's like, okay, we bring him back, but let's just shove him into the Intercontinental title picture.
Remember back in the 50s and 60s when he held the title for 7 years?
Oh, God, dude. Bruno Sammartino held it for 12 years at one point.
Yeah.
It was ridiculous. But in these day and age, it's like if you hold it for 6 months, it's like, oh, my God, you are the super champion. CM Punk had it for like 464 days, and it was like, Jesus Christ, is he ever going to lose that title? And, of course, he drops it to The Rock, and, a couple months short of WrestleMania. But, CM Punk is no longer employed by WWE. Coincidence.
Neither am I, for that matter.
Right. So the big match that I was really excited to see was Sting versus Triple H.
Legendary.
Yeah, because it was like Sting, but here's the thing about this, and I don't want to spoil too much for you, but the big thing about the match was that when in the build-up to the match, it was like Sting was coming in as the guy that has never been in WWE.
Exactly.
For all these years.
He's been one a promotion.
Yeah, he's always been, he was WCW and then TNA, but he was always, not going to WWE. And then after all these years, he shows up and he's like, I have one goal, and that is to take the Authority down. And, he had that big spot where Triple H brings out the sledgehammer, Sting brings out the baseball bat, they go fucking nose to nose.
They have a rumble when you're a vet.
Yeah. And Sting, let's be honest here. Sting, for a guy in his 50s, looked really good in this match. he was bringing it. I mean, he looked about as good as anything I've seen Sting in a long time. And Triple H, you know, in his 40s, not bad either. He was doing a really good job. They really looked like they were just getting into the psychology of it. But the problem that I started to develop with this match was that the story shifted from Sting coming in as the last survivor of WCW for the single purpose of bringing down the Authority to Sting and his company was trying to put us out of jobs and all of this this is mainly JBL on commentary. And all of a sudden it became, let's kill the last piece of WCW. And during the match, we started to see NWO and DX come out, which is awesome. They had a big clash on the outside of the ring. But then when the match ended, it was Triple H beating Sting. And literally the point of the whole match at that moment became WWE, after all these years, said the whole point of bringing Sting in was to kill the last thing of WCW. And it was kind of like, oh man.
You brought out my puppy just to kill him?
Yes, it's exactly what it was. And the thing was with the intros were really cool. The Sting had this big Japanese taiko drum ensemble come on there.
Wow.
And, you know, they played him all the way to the ring. They didn't even announce him. They didn't even introduce him or anything. He just came out to these awesome drummings.
The one time he's going to come out of the Titantron.
Yeah, exactly. And he came down. The fans were into it. You know, he was calling out to the fans. Everybody responded in kind. And then Triple H's intro began, which was themed by Terminator Genesis. Mm-hmm. And so we see all these T-800s come out onto the stage. And it cuts to a Titantron of Arnold Schwarzenegger saying, "It's time to play the game." And then Triple H comes out, and he's got handfuls of T-800 skulls.
Oh, wow.
And he's coming down to the ring, and then it cuts to a wide shot, and it says, target found, Sting, you know, targeted for termination, all that. And then he goes down to the ring.
This is like a pop-fueled fan fiction I would have written in 8th grade.
It was fucking. it was pretty fucking awesome. But the thing about it was that was the whole point. It was like, Sting is finally here. Let's kill him off. Let's get rid of the last bit of WCW.
Damn.
So it was a very bittersweet thing. But even with that understanding, it was a hell of a show. I really enjoyed that match, despite I didn't like what the underlying message of it was.
It was so beautiful, but it was so cruel.
Yes. And they're going to give Sting something. I mean, they basically brought him in there. They made him job out. They made him lose to Triple H. Just like, let's face it, going back all these years talking about WWE and all the guys that they brought in from WCW, what did they do? They lost to WWE guys.
Yeah.
Think about it. If you go look at Booker T, you look at Steiner, you look at all these guys, they were brought in to lose to Triple H. And Sting was no exception. So now that they've had him lose to Triple H, I think we're gonna see Sting and probably Undertaker next year. We're gonna see some stuff for Sting. They're gonna throw Sting a bone, but this initial outing was basically to have him lose.
Sting versus Taker would have been something to see.
Oh man, that was what everybody thought we were gonna get. They thought we were gonna bring back Undertaker a year after his first WrestleMania defeat to finally face off in a match that everybody's wanted to see for ages, because to finally answer the question, who would win?
The two brand loyals.
And I think we can still get that. Now, talking about Undertaker, Bray Wyatt over the past couple years has been kind of filling the Undertaker's role, while Undertaker has been only really coming back for WrestleMania, as being the kind of dark, scary type of character. And the build-up to this one was that Bray Wyatt was basically calling out the Undertaker, saying he's going to bring him back so that he can take his spot. Brock Lesnar broke the streak. Now he's going to put Undertaker away for good. So we didn't see Undertaker the entire build-up. The match finally happens. Bray Wyatt comes out to the ring. Undertaker comes out. And Undertaker looked a lot younger. And the whole thing was basically a buyback for not the streak, but at least Undertaker's presence at WrestleMania. Because we saw the match with Brock Lesnar where Undertaker was absolutely annihilated. And to see him come back looking a lot younger with the retro throwback American Badass type of look, even though he was still...
done it now.
He didn't come out on the motorcycle. He didn't come out to that entrance music. He was still Dead Man Taker, but he looked like when he came back at WrestleMania 20 is what he looked like. And, he beat Bray Wyatt in grand fashion, and it was a big buyback for Undertaker at WrestleMania. So that was pretty awesome. And then at the end of the show, we got the match that nobody was really looking forward to, because the whole point of it was to put Roman Reigns, after all this time that he's been building up, since they broke up the Shield, they're saying Roman Reigns is going to be the next big guy. He's the next John Cena. He's what everybody is going to just get used to being the big guy. Well, what happened with John Cena was they tried that and everybody rejected it. They rejected Cena mainly because, you know, they were shoving him down their throats as being the next top guy.
He was selling me Fruity Pebbles.
Yeah, and it wasn't really working so well. So the same kind of thing started happening. Now, I think it was a bit taken to an unfair extreme where they were really, the fans were really, you know, just giving Roman Reigns a hell of a hard time that I didn't think he necessarily deserved. But at the same time, you know, when you got Brock Lesnar in there as the unbeatable champion that he's been since SummerSlam, which he won by massacring John Cena in epic fashion. And everybody's basically saying, well, this is the story. We all know how this was going to come to an end. The whole thing was to put Roman Reigns over as being the new champion. And did that happen? No. Instead, Seth Rollins came out in the middle of the match and cashed in Money in the Bank and beat Roman Reigns, not Brock Lesnar, beat Roman Reigns with a curb stomp and took the title and left. And that's how the show went off the air. It was a complete surprise swerve, and the fans were like, holy shit, they actually did something that shocked everybody. And it was a really good send-off for the show. And in doing so, they basically set up their next several pay-per-view main events. So overall, I was really impressed with WrestleMania this year. I mean, again, it wasn't as great as some of the Manias in history, but fuck, compared to the last couple of years, this one was really something else.
Cool. I'm gonna have to go back and watch that event. Hearing after the fact how awesome everything actually turned out to be, I do feel a bit saddened at having missed it. But on that note, the Shimmer pay-per-view was incredible. I haven't been to a live wrestling event in easily 10 years.
And you used to wrestle yourself.
I did.
Yeah.
And
so you're familiar. It's not like you're not into pro wrestling. You've been through training even. So
it's the live events are something that's just special. I mean, it's near and dear to my heart. But at the same time, there've been, you know, everybody grows up and we have to move on to other things in our lives, and that's just one of the things I stopped making time for. But my God, thank you for dragging me out there.
Well, I wasn't going to miss this for anything. Now, let me just preempt this discussion by giving you some background on how I discovered Shimmer. And actually, for those of you who don't know what Shimmer actually is, Shimmer is a women's wrestling promotion out of Illinois that started back in 2005. And I think I discovered it around 2011. In fact, it was 2011. And I even remember how I discovered it. I was watching SmackDown while I was making soup one night. I was channel surfing. I came across SmackDown, and it was a Divas match, and it was AJ Lee versus one of the Bella Twins. And I was just appalled at how just crappy it was. It was just nothing but hair mares and simple crappy moves. And I was not impressed. I remember the days of Trish and Lita main eventing Raw and thinking about that going, what the fuck is this? You know, this is...
Anything Victoria ever did.
Oh, fucking nay. Victoria was my favorite. But even...
The Widow's Peak!
That was the best finisher ever. But... just remembering how good women's wrestling had gotten at one point, and to see it just kind of fall apart. Now, I'm not bashing AJ or the Bella Twins because I know that a lot of people like them, but seeing that match at least on that one show, by comparison, it really made me kind of go, you know, there's got to be some decent women's wrestling on the independent scene. So just for poops and grins while I'm making my soup here, while that's coming to a boil and whatnot, I'm going to go just check it out. So I did a Google search, came up with this thing. It said top 15 best women's wrestlers on the independent circuit. So I'm looking through and I'm seeing names like Mischief and Cheerleader Melissa and Madison Eagles and all these other ones. And I see this word Shimmer popping up everywhere. Found out it was a promotion, bought one of the DVDs, one of the old DVDs. It was actually volume 6. And when I saw that, I was like, you know, this is really what I've missed about pro wrestling. This is actually, and it wasn't just for women's wrestling. It was just like, fuck, this is where it's at. It's all independent. It's not what's on television anymore. That isn't cutting it. It's about the independent stuff. And the fact that it was all women's wrestling and it was something different, it was really exciting. So I started buying the DVDs and eventually assimilated a collection that was almost complete as far as what's available. So that brings us to present day.
Now, I mean, I remember you started talking about Shimmer, and I was definitely curious. And then hearing that it was an all-women's promotion, I had some really initial doubts and misgivings. I made some assumptions about the presentations, the way that everything would be handled, the way that the talent would be treated.
Right.
And I don't know if that says more about me or more about just the entertainment environment in general. But as soon as you showed me the DVDs, you showed me the matches, you showed me the talent as they're coming out. I mean, it is exactly what I loved about independent pros and going to live shows back in the day anyway. It was an emphasis on the ring presence. It was an emphasis on the precision, the performance, the athleticism. Holy crap. And then the fact that it's an all-women's roster, what initially I'd kind of dismissed as a gimmick, actually provided for a really unique environment. Because, I mean, you've got athletes out there that are pulling off moves that if they were all-male competitions, you would have to see done by 400-pound men to 300-pound men.
Right.
But you're seeing these maneuvers being done by women who are just more power efficient for their size. It's amazing.
Massive for women.
Not even that. I mean, like, you see, like, Evie come out into the ring, and she's, like, what, 5'4", 150 pounds?
Yeah.
And she's shoulder pressing fuckers, dropping them onto her knees, and you're like, holy shit, there's no way a male her size would be able to do that.
Right. It's with male competition, correct?
Right. And it's just, right away, all my expectations and assumptions were gone, and all I had to do was sit and take it for what it was, and what it turned out to be was just an amazing promotion. The live show was incredible. It was 3 hours, and it shot by like nothing. And when it was over, I was like, "Son of a bitch, come on!"
No, right? Let's we'll get to that in just a second. But what I did to introduce you to it, and I'd shown you bits and pieces here and there. We were filming Carl's house and whatnot. I threw it on, and we watched some matches. But what I initially did to kind of introduce you, I showed you Volume 28, which was the Cerro Del Rey versus Hamada match, which I guess was not the best way to introduce you to it. But
it set me up for it falsely confirmed some of my assumptions, because I mean the match itself, it ended up outside the ring. It was about control of a chair and taking a beat down and trying to dodge DQs, and right away I thought, well, this isn't what I'm for. This isn't what I'm about. I don't want gimmick. I want to see people in the match. I want to see technicians. I want to see you operate. I want to see Angle versus Guerrero.
Right. And I didn't really expect that. I had always seen Del Rey versus Hamada as already an existing Shimmer fan as being, holy fuck, that was the craziest match I've ever seen in this promotion. So that's what that was my thoughts. Like, you got to see this, you know. But and then, you know, when I showed you Volume 54, which was the newest at the time that I had, it was like, okay, this is what it is now. And that, I think, was the one that kind of impressed
That one won me over right away.
Yeah.
I mean, that's where I started to really take notice of the talent that I enjoyed watching, not only for their skill, but just for their presence. I mean, there's a lot to be said for gimmick. There's a lot to be said for performance. I mean, I've read essays on pro wrestling way back in the day that describe, you know, you can't just be an athlete. You have to be a comedian. You have to be an actor. You have to be the biggest presence in the room. And that is exactly what these women nail. And I mean, whether they're putting on a comedic match that's meant to make you laugh and it plays out like the Keystone Cops, or they're putting together a Clash of the Titan type match where you're going to watch the earth split open and somebody's going to come out with the head of Medusa.
Right.
You know, either way that they're going, they fucking nail it. And it has you from beginning to end. And you're like, go, 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 which is what you need from pro wrestling. If you're not grabbing my attention and getting me invested and I want to see how this ends, even though I know the nature of the actual performance, I mean, that's what I'm there for. Oh man, you got me. Let's see these superheroes go.
Yeah, and that's another thing too, is the environment, because the Eagles Club is so small that you can only fit about 200 people in there.
This is their local venue.
This is their venue in Berwyn, Illinois, and it's mostly people at this point. I would say it's probably half locals, and then the other half, probably at least 100 people in that building, flew there from other states and other countries. There are people from Australia and over in the United Kingdom that are flying over to see these shows, just like they have been bringing in international talent, which brings me to my next point about what I think is so cool, that by virtue of being a women's promotion, they have basically become one of the only promotions I can think of in the world, really, that focuses on flying in international talent. They have the best in the world in what they have in one small-ass venue in front of 200 hardcore fans.
And it really shows. You've got such a distilled program going on.
Yeah.
I mean, just from start to finish, you've got these names where even if you don't recognize them, as soon as they hit the ring, you immediately make a decision like, I'm for them or I'm against them. And just the fact that you are so engaged is just remarkable. Because, I mean, so many times I try to tune into a WWE show just for shits and gigs. Like, hey, what's going on? 5 minutes later, nah, fuck this.
Yeah, just who gives a shit? This guy's been in the ring talking on a microphone for 10 minutes, and I don't give a fuck what he's talking about. I'd like to see a fucking arm drag or a DDT at some point, you know?
Somebody get in there and wrestle.
Yes, exactly. So so that was kind of our setup going into the show on Saturday, the 28th. And what I knew going in, I was a little bit disappointed with what had been announced because so many of my favorite Shimmer stars were not going to be on the show. There was no Kelly Skater, who's my favorite. We had no Courtney Rush. We had no Lufisto. We didn't have Madison Eagles. You know, there was a lot of people on there that I was like, if I ever go to a Shimmer show, these are the people that I want to see that were not there. But what we did have were... And what I found out later from listening to an interview with Dave Prazak is that the whole point of doing the Chick Fight tournament was to build up the undercard talent. And he said in that interview that was his goal going into the show, is that like we're not going to book a lot of our major talent. The whole point was to bring up the undercard talent to build them up for big matches later.
For the record, the tournament was officially called the Chick Fight.
Yes, and in the brief background, the Chick Fight actually precedes Shimmer. Shimmer was formed in 2005, but there were Chick Fight tournaments being held in Hayward, California originally. It actually eventually moved to the United Kingdom, but it started in Hayward, and eventually that preceded Shimmer. So their reason to call it the Chick Fight tournament was to as a throwback to those old Chick Fight tournaments from years past. So this tournament was designed to basically bring up the undercard talent. Now, with all that, we get into the venue in San Jose. We did the 2-hour drive, which was a lot of fun. We laughed.
45 minutes of sleep.
Yes.
Oh my God.
Yeah, the Burro here had gotten out of work really, really late.
Yeah.
And had gotten a total of 45 minutes of sleep the whole way.
Drove 2 hours to San Jose. Sat through the 3-hour program, went out, had lunch, and I was exhausted by the end of it. But God damn, it was worth it.
Yes, we drove 2 hours back, and then you went home and slept. I'm assuming for a long time.
Weeks.
And so we walk into this building. Now, before we walk in, we got in there, we did our thing, we finally found a parking spot. We start walking into the fairgrounds. We go into the bathroom where they have troughs.
Love that county fair feel.
Yeah, I was like, man, I haven't peed in a trough since my last NASCAR race I attended back in the 90s. So it's like, okay, you take that one and pee in that direction.
I haven't peed in a trough since they asked me to stop coming back to Mickey Grove.
So we get out of the damn bathroom after we peed in the damn troughs, and we're walking towards the venue. And as we got to the venue, we saw on the outside of the building, we're like, holy shit, there they are.
Nikki Storm was out there.
Nikki Storm was out there. Cherry Bomb was out there. I saw Jessica Havoc fooling around on a laptop or something out on the outside. I'm like, well,
Tumblr.
Kayfabe. Kayfabe. But, it was cool. It was like, oh, man, Cherry Bomb is something to look at in person. But... So I walk in.
Her match was fucking hilarious.
That was fantastic.
Oh my God.
Yeah.
Her and Nikki Storm.
Yes.
And then that's what I'm talking about, with just being able to put on a humorous match.
Yes.
I mean, it was technically sound all the way through, but the fact that it had you laughing.
Yes, that was great.
It's just something so underappreciated.
Totally. Yeah. So we get in there, we check out the DVD. The cool thing is, because we were sitting front row, we were basically sitting facing the ring, but just a couple seats over from the entranceway.
We were close enough to be spit on had they decided to acknowledge we existed.
Yes, which we'll get to. Long story short, our seats got virtually no love the entire show. We were passed on by almost every babyface that walked through that curtain.
Couldn't get a high five from nobody.
Yeah, I mean, I got one from Candice LeRae and Mia Yim, and that's it.
Who is it? Kaylee?
Kaylee Ray, yes.
Kaylee Ray actually snubbed me pretty directly. It was pretty awesome in its own way. Would have been the only high five, dap, if you will. I would have gotten the whole night, but instead, within 5 inches, she just goes, no, and turns around.
And honestly, watching the pay-per-view and looking at us, I don't blame her.
I wouldn't have shook my hand either. I look like a blind comic book nerd who wandered in because I forgot to take off my sunglasses.
And I looked at myself, I'm like, dude, my fucking beard, first of all, is the first thing that's going to grab everybody. But then secondly, I look like the biggest dork because as soon as somebody comes out, I'm like, oh my God, I can jump out of my fucking seat and I'm all happy and shit.
Confetti and fucking corn pops going everywhere.
Dude, I mean, when Tomoka was coming out, I was like, where the fuck did everybody get the streamers?
Yeah.
I wanted to throw a fucking streamer.
My God, did they take a minute to clean that up.
Oh my God, dude, seriously. So we get in there, we saw some pretty fucking awesome matches. The first person we saw was Evie, which, I mean, you were taken by Evie pretty quickly before we even got in there.
From the DVDs that you lent me, right away she stood out. I mean, she reminded me of Rey Mysterio with that kind of unfallible superhero persona. You know, she came out and the only thing I thought she was missing was a cape and wind in her hair. And so just right away, seeing Kaylee on the or Evie on the DVDs, and then seeing that she was opening the event, I was amazed just because it was like, oh my god, a name I recognize. I'm a brand new fan coming into the show. I think, well, I'm probably going to get left in the dust. I didn't familiarize myself with the card. Don't know who's going to be here. Doubt I'd recognize him even if I did. But then, bam, right out the gate, a familiar face, one I'm happy to see. Yes, get in the ring, kill her, get her. Yes. And it's just from there, it was nothing but history. She advanced to the final round. I got to see 3 Evie matches. Still stands out in my mind as a stone cold superhero, just going out, killing it. I want to see her take on a 32 athlete Royal Rumble by herself. Go in first, come out in the end, take the WWE title. Fuck you!
Yeah! It was interesting because the first person that actually came out was Evie's opponent, Portia Perez, who is probably what I think the most entertaining heel in the promotion. Mm-hmm. And that was a really fun show. And then we got into Candice LeRae and Nicole Savoy.
That match was vicious.
That was vicious, yeah, totally. Candice LeRae got busted, her nose busted pretty bad. You said you saw her on the way out and she had like a black eye or something, right?
After the show, she was out signing glossies, selling merch, doing the thing that you do when you're working independent. You're not making a whole lot of money being there. You got to sell merch.
Right.
But you go and you see her after the match. Where we were sitting, we didn't see it happen, but when the match was over, she was, making her way out, nose was bleeding, looking pretty intense.
Before she made her way out, though, remember, we were watching the referee fumble with his rubber gloves for about 2 years.
Oh, yeah, that shit. Jesus. Well, you are not an EMT, sir. Step aside and let the professionals jump in. Anyway, so she leaves the match, face very bloodied up, looking hardcore, like, oh my God, she went through something, but we couldn't really piece where it happened.
Right.
After the match, or after the show, when she's out signing her merch and doing all that, she has her bleeding, now bandaged nose and a black eye. Mm-hmm. And it just, the composure, it reminded me, like I said, of Dante from SPW. Mm-hmm. Who just stands out in my mind as like the king of hardcore. I seen the guy take a 30-foot header to the concrete, get up, wave to the crowd, need a Big Mac, and then here's Candice LeRae hitting these rolling DDTs off the top rope to ringside, getting kicked in the face, bleeding everywhere, rocking it hardcore, even though she's all of 4'10".
Yeah.
And just fucking killing it. And then you see her after the match smiling, giggling. Wasn't that fun, guys? With a black eye and a broken nose. And it's like, son of a bitch, this is wrestling.
Yes, it is. Yeah. Not that we if I could talk, not that we want to see that happen to people, but at the same time, it's like, Jesus, man, you're wearing it, It was
just, right away, just like I said, I went in with the wrong expectations because, like I said, I don't know what it says about me or the environment of entertainment, but I just had low expectations, and at every fucking turn, those were just shattered, and just more and more, I want more Shimmer, big shows, big names. This kicks ass.
Yeah, and I think we could sum Candice LeRae's performance up in 2 words: mad props.
Yeah.
Just to simplify it. The one kind of light spot, or the one kind of weak spot on the show, I felt was probably the most anticipated match on the card, which was Melissa versus Jessica Havoc.
Yeah.
That match was not so good, to put it lightly. It was one of those that it was like, okay, once we got through the epic entrances,
it felt very awkward.
It was awkward, man.
There were these awkward pauses throughout the match where Jessica Havoc would just kind of stare at her opponent, and her opponent would stare back. Mm-hmm. And it felt like they were maybe relying on too many can spots or something like that. I don't want to get all smart Mark on you because those dudes suck. Yeah. But the point being that in the momentum of the show, it was definitely a distraction.
It slowed everything down. It was last of the first round, so we'd seen 5 pretty damn awesome. We'd seen Mia Yim and Athena at that point, which was great.
They fucking killed it.
Yes, that was and that plays even better when I watched it on the show itself, on the pay-per-view. But when we watched it live, we loved it, but it was one of those things that I think played better because we got better camera angles. Mm-hmm. But
our corner not only got no love from the talent making entrance, but there was a cameraman there who thought we paid to see his ass.
Yeah, pretty much. Yeah, that guy would not get out of our goddamn way.
Fucking move!
Yeah.
Dynamic perspective, motherfucker.
Yeah, get some dude, and even from here's a photographer saying, get some different angles too. It would benefit the both of us. Anyway, so we get to Melissa and Havoc, and yeah, as you were saying, it felt very awkward. It was just not. It seemed like they were going for something. They had something planned.
It definitely felt like they had something big in mind that we just didn't get to see.
Yeah, that's the impression that I got too. It felt like there was something they were trying for, but it just kind of fell apart. And then it had a really weak end.
I was disappointed, and I heard murmurs through the crowd that this was going to be the big thing. I mean, the smart Mark seated behind us wouldn't shut the fuck up about how this was going to change the face of pro wrestling.
This is going to be stiff, man.
But, it was ultimately disappointing. But the DVD that I bought at the event, I want to say it was...
63.
There you go. Had Jessica Havoc on it, and right away I went home and watched that, and I could see why the match would be so hyped. She is normally just kicks ass. She's the big red machine. She's killing it.
No, she's not Kane, for the record.
I know she's not, for the record, but it's the references I have.
And she comes out to Hansel and Gretel.
She's the Havoc Doom Machine.
Yeah, Havoc Death Machine.
Death Machine.
She beat Sami Callihan for that title.
I can see where expectations would be high.
And she comes out to Hansel and Gretel. I mean, how badass is it? Well, not anymore, but she did.
Third Reich from the Sun.
Third Reich from the Sun, yeah. But and then of course cheerleader Melissa being the the kind of the hallmark of the promotion. So 2-time champion and all that. So I mean,
they're
it was
Hogan.
They're Hogan pretty much, and kind of just it was just underdelivered. But then we got into the second match, the second round, which was really, really good. That's where we got Evie versus Nicole Savoy, which was really solid.
That stood out as the match of the night for me.
That was the match of the night in general. I mean, Evie looked amazing. And
that stomp finish off the top rope caught me out of nowhere. Normally, when I expect to see a big finish like that set up, you can see it coming from a mile away. There's this artificial fight on the top of the turnbuckle. You trade heat, get ready to go, things like that. This came out of fucking nowhere. I thought, okay, we're gonna see a superplex. She's gonna take them out. Holy shit, double stomp! And it was so satisfying. It got me out of my seat. It was fantastic.
Yeah,
and I mean that's what I ended up loving so much about the show. Was that fuck your expectations. We brought you here to show you something.
Yeah, and I couldn't remember. I think it was this match. It could have been the other one where Evie took this German. Yeah, that was ugly. It was a beautifully executed move, but in terms of her landing, it was nasty.
Knocked like an inch off her height.
Yeah, and it was like, Jesus. I mean, we got a lot of respect for Evie after that. It was just like, holy shit. And then... what was the other second round match? We had a Mia Yim and Melissa, which was ruined again.
Ruined, yes, by the intervention. And this is what it can be done. I mean, I've got a soft spot for Attitude Era myself, but I don't come in to see DQs and run-ins and things like that.
Yeah, there's a place where it can work, but generally speaking, especially if your PA system fucks up on you.
Oh my God! Okay,
that was we're skipping ahead, but yeah. The Havoc thing did not work out. There was a ref bump, and Havoc came out, and it sucked.
It
is bullshit because Mia Yim had been so good previously. And it was like, God damn it, man. I wanted to see Mia Yim in the finals of this thing.
It felt like a premature and inappropriate end to what was an otherwise amazing match up to that point.
Right. And actually, we'd started to talk about Cherry Bomb and Nikki Storm in the first round. That was fantastic. Nikki Storm was great.
Nikki Storm, I mean, man, Y2 Nikki. I mean,
Yes.
she comes out to the ring, the best in the galaxy. And I was so mad there's not a best in the galaxy t-shirt for me to buy.
I'm sure there is somewhere, but there wasn't at the show.
Next time we go, I'm going to have a best fan in the galaxy sign just for her because, I mean, that was entertaining as hell.
Yeah.
I mean, she not only had the presence, but, I mean, when she was actually in the ring, she put it together so well. And, I mean, to be able to put on what is essentially a comedy skit and a wrestling match at the same time was just fucking amazing.
Yeah, and the way that she matched up with Cherry Bomb was really fun in the first match. In the second match, we had Kaylee Ray and Nikki Storm, which was Scotland versus Scotland. Scotland, I should say.
The nice part of Glasgow.
Yeah, the nice part of Glasgow versus the shitty part of Glasgow. And, Kaylee Ray ended up winning the tournament, so that was obviously the outcome of that match. But, those were really good, too. So then we got to the title match. Now, the thing was, this was Tomoka Nakagawa's final tour of the U.S. It started at Shimmer 71, and it concluded in Berwyn a couple weeks later for her last Shimmer tapings. And, so that was really cool that she got the streamers and she got all the love and respect. And I actually did. I couldn't afford a whole lot of merch. Otherwise, I would have bought everything, but I couldn't afford a lot. So the one thing I did buy was an 8x10 commemorative 8x10 for Tomoka, where I actually talked to her, and she actually understands pretty decent English, and she spelled my name correctly. And I was like, thank you. That's fantastic. So
for those of you who think that's a racist comment, I can't spell his name correctly, and I've known the dude for 15 years.
Yeah, well, and not only that, but I mean, fuck, I've studied Japanese. It's not like we have the easiest languages to comprehend, one way or the other.
English fucks people up.
Yeah, English is hard. I mean, if you think about Japanese as being complex, at least it's syllabic alphabet, You try to go for fucking silent letters and all that shit. I was impressed with Tomika's English, is what I'm saying. So, yeah, that was really cool. But it was her only match in California, as far as I know, and
it was a good match.
It was good. And Nicole Matthews, I think, is really fitting into the role as champion pretty well. Mm-hmm. I still vouch for Madison Eagles as always being the best, but that's me personally. And yeah, so that was a pretty solid match. I really dug that. And then we got the finals, which was Kaylee Ray, Evie, and Shirley Melissa.
That is correct.
And again, Havoc's involvement.
Rick!
Yes.
Havoc!
It was just, come on, man. We've done this already.
Such an awkward false start to her run-in.
Yeah, because they fucking played the music, and then nothing happened. Then they stopped it, and they played it again.
As soon as any entrance theme hit, you're going to look at the ramp.
You're going to stop and look at the fucking ramp, ignoring everything that's going on except for the occasional glance back.
And because it was an accidental hit... Yeah. It pretty much just pulled everyone out of the match and put this awkward banana peel in the middle of everything.
Right, exactly. And then it stopped, and then we had to go, well, what the fuck was that? Okay.
Did I hallucinate that? Am I high?
This was a botched run-in. We already knew that, but let's just redirect. Okay, they start wrestling again, and then they fucking goes again.
At that point, I wish they would have just committed to the run-in with the false start.
Right.
Because they kill the music, everybody gets, oh, guess not, goes back to the match, and as soon as everybody is focused again, literally no more than 30 seconds later, then the music hits.
Or even just to say, fuck it. Like, they got everybody thinking, okay, she was going to come out and then nothing happened. And then we redirect our focus. And then she just runs in the ring with no music at all to surprise everybody.
That would have been epic too, yeah.
I mean, there was a way you could have saved that. But, in any case. So the match itself was pretty fucking awesome. Melissa got eliminated quickly, which is great. Because then we saw it's going to be
a legitimate match.
Yes. It's going to be Kaylee Ray or Evie. It's going to be one of the two underneath people.
Oh, what a nail biter.
Oh my god. And yeah, Evie's costume change was exciting. Because it was like, wait a minute, she didn't change costumes between the first two matches, but I certainly noticed this time.
I was confused because I thought to myself, like, I must not be paying that much attention. I mean, she wasn't wearing purple flowers to begin with.
Yeah. It was just like, oh wow, okay. And then Kaylee Ray, who had not had a costume change, it was like, okay, so she looks the same, but Evie looks completely different. But in any case, it was awesome because they put on a really nice show.
And watching them struggle for their finishers at the end was just one of the most suspenseful things I've ever seen in a long old time. I mean, that was Solid Snake crawling through the hallway at the end of Guns and the Patriots. It was just like, come on, somebody hit it!
Right. Yeah. And at the same time, I think by this point, we were both like completely on Evie's side, I would assume.
Oh, yeah.
I liked Kaylee Ray too, but I was just like, I really wanted to see Evie win this because she was so good the whole show. And
she was consistent. I mean, she made her way through everything and in such a, like I said, like the underdog type way.
Mm-hmm. Absolutely. So, but Kaylee Ray won the whole thing, and it was a nice conclusion. My one big gripe with it as a live experience was the lack of an intermission. Because, dude, we were both waiting for it.
Oh yeah.
I was like, dude, I gotta pee. I gotta get a fucking. I gotta pee. I gotta get a corn dog. I know I'm a cannibal, but Jesus Christ, I gotta get something to eat. I gotta get all that kind of stuff because we've been sitting in there watching the show for an hour and a half. It'd been a great time to do an intervention, but.
And I am just neurologically broken, so if you put me in a chair for 3 hours, by the end of it, I'm going to be eating my own fingers.
Right. So I would like to see them exercise, like, let's do an intermission every so often.
Let me stand.
Yes. But after that, it was a really fun show. We talked about it the whole way home. It was a good time. Enjoyed watching it back again on the pay-per-view. The funny thing is watching us again. Just seeing us in the fucking front row just being
Who invited these two assholes?
Yeah, right. It was like we were complaining the way home. It's like, why didn't anybody come around and like greet us when we were out there shaking, like waving our hands at them? And it's like, we watched the pay-per-view, like, oh, that's why.
We look like a pair of YouTubers who photoshopped ourselves into the DVD.
Right, exactly. It's like, holy shit. I just couldn't get over how fucking excited I was to see everybody. I was like, my God, dude. I'm 28 fucking years old.
Meanwhile, I look like Bernie fucking Lomax, all slouched down in my chair with my sunglasses on.
And the Reptar t-shirt.
I know, like, somebody pick him up and make him look alive.
Right. So that was a fun time. Unfortunately, folks, in the next segment, we will be switching gears a little bit.
Unfortunately, fortunately, however you feel about it,
Yeah.
you know, the truth knows no emotion.
We have fun on this show. That's what the show is all about, having fun, but we do need to be serious from time to time. So in the next segment, that's what we'll be doing. We're going to be talking about something that a lot of people are probably going to be pissed at us for talking about. There's going to be a lot of people offended, I'm sure, but the general thing is...
None of those people are people I would trust my children with.
Exactly. These are things that we feel we need to say. So in the next segment, we're going to be talking about the general feeling about hardcore Christians versus gays versus women versus blacks versus all of this other
Versus
stuff.
trans, police brutality,
And-
cats and dogs living together is pandemonium.
And where what we're saying about someone, an individual religious creed versus where it goes too damn far.
Yeah.
So that's coming up next. Tons of fun on Podcastemonium, motherfuckers.
Bust your nut now before I ruin your erection.
What volume for 135?
Enron Online will change the markets for many, many commodities. It is creating an open, transparent marketplace that replaces the dark, blind system that existed. It is real simple. You turn on your computer, and it's right there. And if you want to do business, you push the button.
Special.
You were listening to 106.9 The Duck, the only radio station that does not fuck around when it comes to the real live talk. Let's let the Burro take it away, and I'll come in with my disclaimer coming up second. But in the meantime, I've got to put my cat outside, so don't mind the awkwardness in the opening portions of this segment.
Move along, Garfield.
Yes.
All right, I want to open up with a disclaimer right now because a lot of people get the wrong impression that I hate people for their faith. That is not the case, okay? I believe that God or whatever faith that you have is exactly what you do with it. If God comes to you and you use that inspiration to go and feed the homeless and help heal the sick, do things like that, then that is what God is, and that is what God is because of you and through you. God is healing, God is embracing, God is loving. If you're using God, or rather if God comes to you just to keep you strong, to keep you going through the next day because you don't know what's coming, if you can handle it, then that is what God is. God is strength. God is inspiration. But if you're using God to come out there and express your own fucking ignorance, if you're using God as a fucking bulletproof vest to come out and spread your fucking anger, your prejudice, your insecurities, trying to spread them on the people around you, then fuck you and fuck your God. I want to see you both burn. That being said, here's what the fuck I'm talking about, okay? I want to know what it is. I want to know. Call me, tell me, explain to me what it is about your fucking faith that is anybody else's fucking problem. I want to know what it is about you and your relationship with an all-knowing, all-seeing, all-creating being who is omnipotent, who is unstoppable, at least according to you, that requires you to come out the fucking ranks with a fucking sign, with a fucking bullhorn, with a fucking message of hate to come around and say, you are going to burn in hell because I do not understand or appreciate your lifestyle. You're going to burn in hell because you are something that is wrong to me, something that I could never be. What the fuck sense does that make? Okay, let's get real for a fucking second. What is homophobia? All right, it's an oversimplification. It's a complex issue, but I always sum it up as this. Homophobia is the fucking fear that a man is going to treat another man like a fucking woman. Mm-hmm. Which brings us into misogyny. Okay? What the fuck is it about a woman that you look at and you see this inferiority? What is it? What is it? Okay, you've got this weird type of possessive issue. You're trying to claim to be respectful. All right, I'm talking about the American fringe, fundamentalist, extremist Christian. Okay, these are the people I'm talking about. People who come out and say, you know, there will be no mosque in my town. You don't treat your women right. How the fuck do you treat your women? A promise ring? Mm-hmm. What the hell is that? It is a promise to your parents that you will remain a virgin. What the fuck is any teenage girl doing making promises to anybody about her motherfucking body? Mm-hmm. All right, tell me that.
Yes.
Explain to me in a very succinct and calm and logical way. I will have that. I will have that discussion with you. But that being said, fuck you and fuck that fucking ignorance. Okay, I don't understand it. What it is about your association of faith that makes you believe that you are being oppressed, that you are being persecuted because you do not have the right to approach strangers and tell them they are doomed. Because you do not have the right to approach strangers and tell them that you disapprove. You do not have the right to harass people who are going about their day, trying to be productive, trying to find themselves, trying to live in peace, trying to find love, trying to find the same fucking niche in life and benefit from the same American governmental advantages that you and I do. Mm-hmm. Where is the logic? What is the sense in that? What does that fucking mean? Okay, and just let's get real. Mm-hmm. All right? You're afraid that a man is going to treat you like a woman. I'm okay with the gays as long as they don't hit on me. Okay, well then that acknowledges to me that you are afraid of the way that they are going to treat you because you know there was something inherently wrong with the way that you treat women. Mm-hmm. All right? Something to think about, something to take home and chew on and really, really be real about. All right? So, I mean, these are conversations that we see all the fucking time, okay? People who are hella abusive to their wives but cool to their daughters. Okay, my wife, you know, I don't want her talking to people. I don't want her going out. I don't want her wearing that. I don't want her talking to these people. Why? Because you own her? Because you're afraid she's going to stray from you? Because you're afraid she's going to find some kind of sexual identity that is independent of you? And then you look at your daughter and go, no, that is my princess. Mm-hmm. I love her. She is innocent. She's uncorruptible, at least until she grows titties and other people start talking to her. Because basically what I'm understanding here is that any time that somebody has to come in and crash down and be like, no, you will not do that, that is inappropriate, is because a man is saying, I am not comfortable with the fact that I want to jerk off to you. Mm-hmm. And that is frightening.
It is, dude. It's bullshit.
I mean, I had a plan coming into this. I had some things I wanted to say, but let's be real. It's just anger running fucking wild through me. I don't comprehend it. I don't understand it. Okay, and then there are well-meaning arguments. There are things that come through that try to make a point, and they're coming from the right place. And I encourage you, keep coming from that right place. Keep digging, keep looking, keep thinking, keep trying. But when I completely lost my train of fucking thought. That's what the fucking rage is going on here right now. Okay?
Maybe this would be a good point for me to take over.
Go ahead and get in. I'm going to regain myself and then come in fucking furious.
All right. So basically, from my perspective on this, let's look at faith a couple of different ways. The main thing that we're trying to do with our faith and our belief systems is to try to find a way that makes the entirety of our lives worth it into us and gives us an answer to all of our problems. What we're trying to do is find a way to embrace one another as a species and hopefully find a way that we can all live in harmony. That's kind of the idea in a nutshell, but there is a way that you can appreciate it and there's a way that needs to fucking go away.
I mean, there's the well-meaning attitude of, you know, this is somebody's daughter, this is somebody's mother, this is somebody's wife, this is somebody's sister. And that's true, but it's falling short of the core argument, which is that is a person.
And not even just with women, with races in general. Let's talk on racism a little bit.
All right.
You know, let's take the Burro and I, for example. We're completely different ethnicities. The Burro is Mexican. I am a white boy.
I am Mexican despite having been born and raised an American.
Right. The Burro is Hispanic. Let's go with the ethnic Arthur.
I mean, you know, why do I got to hyphenate? But
right. But at the same time, the thing about with racism, but let's talk about the black thing, because that was a big topic on our last show when we talked.
Black Lives Matter.
Exactly, and what, you know, the attitude that you brought up a little while ago about why do you have to be black to have sympathy for other black issues?
That is exactly it. I mean, there's I'll come right out and say it. Look, it's a volatile subject because it is frightening. Mm-hmm. Okay, I mean, most recently the case that I'm aware of is Megan Hockaday, 26 years old, mother of 3. It's a domestic dispute. The police are called out there, Oxnard, California. Mm-hmm. Police are called out to de-escalate the situation. Mm-hmm. That's what they're supposed to do.
That's not far from here.
It's not.
Okay.
They're supposed to serve and protect. But what do they do when they get there? They murder the woman. Mm-hmm. Okay, she's armed, quote unquote. She is quote unquote armed.
With a knife.
She's in possession of a knife.
Right.
Okay, but you're going to tell me that armed, trained, armored police officers are incapable of incapacitating one person with a knife? I mean, you see police so often say, you know, we don't want anybody to die here. We don't want anybody to get hurt here. They try to take people who take hostages alive. They try to take school shooters alive. They try to take bank robbers
When
alive.
they're scared shitless.
Yeah. They try to take them alive, but a woman with a knife in her own front yard gets gunned down within 20 seconds of contact?
Yeah. No, fuck that.
And you're going to tell me what? It was justified? Fear for her life? Let's talk about Oxnard PD. They've got a culture of violence. They get commemorative tattoos. Whenever a cop is involved with a shooting, they get a tattoo of a smoking gun. If there's smoke out of the barrel, then the person they shot died on the scene. If there isn't, then they died later.
This is some prison bullshit.
Any town where your police exist, they are the most dangerous gang.
Fuck.
They are untouchable by the law. They are looking out for each other, period. And then you start to see the real truth of the system put forward, the institutionalized racism, because everybody has their prejudices, whether or not you want to admit it. And I'm sorry. I know it gets frightening. I know it is intense. I'm not blaming anybody out there. I am a predominantly, although not entirely, heterosexual male raised in a heterosexual world. Or rather, I have been taught to believe it is a heterosexual world and everybody else just lives in it. Men are taught to believe it is a man's world and everyone else just lives in it. White people are taught to believe it's a white world and everybody just lives in it.
It's true.
And that is what's so disturbing. That is what's so disgusting. You see these police talk about to serve and protect, but you got to stop and realize who they're talking about. And that is what is so disgusting. I mean, you mention these stories and people immediately get defensive. They get angry and they talk about, well, how many white people are killed by blacks every day? Like, okay, well, that does happen, but it is...
How many humans are murdered by humans on a daily basis?
Right, and this has got to be one of the shittiest criteria ever put forward. And so that is what I'm saying here. That is the problem, is that it's not that you are actively racist. It's not that you're walking down the street saying, I don't want blacks to have jobs. It's not that you're walking down the street saying these Mexicans are taking over. It's not that you're walking down the street going, oh, there goes another Muslim terrorist. It's the fact that without realizing it, you see these people as foreigners, despite the fact they've been in this country as long, if not longer, than you.
And there are plenty of instances where everything you just said is happening. And let's not deny that. There are certain instances, and I would even challenge most of our listeners, and you and I, to think of a lot of days that have gone by where we don't even have those thoughts, at least at one point or another, even if it's just for the very simple basic thing of something else is bothering you, so you just look to the nearest thing that is going to be like, okay, this is different. What the fuck is up with this?
Let's talk about a couple different examples, all right? Let's talk about the news's role in this, the media, the visual media, newspapers, news channels, news websites now.
Corrupt.
Okay, so reality television.
Fuck reality TV.
Right. Biggest Loser, The Bachelor, you know,
Total Divas.
My Gay Cousin, whatever the hell you want to call the next fucking exploitative show.
Sure.
Because of what they're telling us, it is reality television. Because of its format, we, the audience, are making assumptions about what they're telling us. We're assuming what they're telling us is true. We're assuming what the events that they're showing us occurred in the order that they occurred in. We're assuming that the words that are being spoken are unaltered and unmanipulated. But then when you look behind the scenes, you find out these shows are put together to play up the drama. They want you to side with specific people. They want you to side against specific people. Now stop and apply this model to the news.
Yeah.
Corporate owned.
And
rich people paying rich people to tell middle class people to blame poor people.
And what may not be scripted is certainly edited under the instruction of someone else.
We're making assumptions because it is the news. We're making assumptions because it is the action story at 6, that it is absolutely true, that it is unaltered, that it is unadulterated.
And so Fox News versus CNN.
Criminal organizations.
Watch one half of Fox News, switch over to CNN, watch the second half. Watch the first half of CNN, switch over to Fox News. Is it the same shit?
Neither of them are credible, and they're both telling the different story. A good example I could tell you would be Fox News itself, like you just brought up. The American news headline is money for illegals. The Fox News Latino headline is, in a rare move, they grant an undocumented citizen a college tuition. And this is what I'm talking about. You make assumptions that what you're being told is true. You are trusting these people implicitly because of assumptions you've made about the presentation and the format. And I know it's scary. I know it's horrifying because you rely on these people for information. But that is why you have to develop a reliance on yourself to be informed.
And now dialing this cultural discussion back to the importance of religion. Where we see, well, let me just do my little thing, and then I'll let you go on it. With Christianity, the reason why Christianity is the main focus of this discussion is because of not people that are like, hey, I have faith in Jesus. I'm not talking to you. I'm not talking about you. What I'm talking about are people like the Westboro Baptist Church. What I'm talking about are these extremists that burn Qurans.
Talking about Indiana.
Yes, we're talking about the people that are hardcore about basically tearing down anyone that is slightly different to their viewpoints. Somebody that will come out there and say that this is against God because it is against me. Mm-hmm. And because I decided that it was against me, I have subsequently decided that it is against God. And because our relationship with our Christian faith or whatever faith, even Islam is guilty of this in some respects, as is most faith systems. Almost everything has some sort of prejudice built into it. It's whatever you've decided that you're programmed with that comes in with this, and then you've not only have you basically violated the virtues of what most religions are trying to achieve, you've essentially disgraced it and disgraced the human race to a certain extent by realizing that you're using your belief systems as an excuse for your poor behavior in public with your fellow man and woman.
You're using it as an excuse to not grow as a human. You're using it as a shield. If you hide behind this faith unchanged as it is, but all right, you want to do this? Let's do this. Okay.
Go for it. I'm going to get a beer.
One, we as Americans, by and large, anybody who is considered a part of the majority has been put in a position of becoming very soft. Now, when I say the majority, I just mean anybody who is not included when you refer to a minority, a group that is underrepresented within a system or a government. We are one of the most religious countries in the world. We fall only behind countries that are literally governed by Muslim law, Sharia law countries. And in our cushy, we are the world, we are the police of the planet environment, we have become so unchallenged, we have become so comfortable in our righteousness that we confuse being disagreed with being persecuted. And so in a place like Indiana, where it is legal for a private business owner to refuse service to a gay person based on religious beliefs, because we believe that forcing them to serve the homosexuals would infringe upon their religious freedom. Now, religious freedom just means what you do in your own time, on your Sabbath, your holy day, with your prayer, with your spirit, with your soul, is your own goddamn business. Now, there's the capitalist in me that believes you have the right to refuse service to anyone at any time for any reason. But I have the right to criticize those reasons. Mm-hmm. Now, moving onward into the freedom of religion argument, so often we find ourselves with the Christians arguing, again, the fundamentalist, extremist Christians, arguing that their inability to impose their rules, what are supposed to be self-governing laws upon other people around them is somehow persecuting them, is somehow oppressing them, is somehow infringing upon their freedom of religion. They confuse their freedom with other people's, what would be the word? Conformity, submission.
Yes.
They confuse their lack of authority over the people around them with oppression. This is another example of they believe it's a Christian world and everyone else is just living in it. Aside from that, if you really want to dig and look at the Christian teachings, Christ never opened a can of whoop ass.
No.
Christ hung out with the hookers. Christ hung out with the thieves. All right? Christ came out and said, look, if you are the nastiest, most fucked up person that your town has turned against, I'm for you. I'm your proponent. Jesus never stood in front of anybody and said, step back, faggots.
Yeah, exactly. I mean, and if you think about what the purpose of Christ as the prophet and as the person that is the support symbol that Christians view him as, where else would he be? Why wouldn't he be with those people? Because those are the people that needed him. Those are the people that he felt were looked down upon by the public, but there was a genuine source of humanity within every single person. Even the most rotten and degenerate people that you can come across, they have a center. They have a point of where they are still an infant, so to speak, innocent and full of nothing but just genuine interest in the pursuit of happiness.
What happened to turn the other cheek?
Yeah, exactly.
Anybody who feels the need to step in and speak for God has what I can only determine is the weakest, shittiest faith in that God.
Exactly. And the thing about God is, whether you believe in God or not, here's the thing. God is a voice that people hear, whether you believe in it or you don't. And essentially what that voice is your conscience. It is something that is trying to teach you the best way to go about living the rest of your life in a way that you're not going to ruin it. You're not going to ruin it for yourself. You're not going to ruin it for anybody else. It's supposed to be the thing that's looking over your shoulder, that's trying to guide you. And if that is telling you to go out there and say God hates fags, or go out there and say that, my wife's a whore, but my daughter will be a princess. And it's not, it's telling you to say that niggers are shit. I'm sorry for saying that word, but let's be real. This is what people are saying.
If you think that's not a Christian theme, you've obviously not investigated Mormonism.
You haven't investigated anything, because that's what it's always been. That's what it's always been in the history of our country. That's always been since the time of the Crusades. That's what it's always been ever since before there was Christianity, and it was just the Neanderthals versus the fucking Homo sapiens.
So long as you're picking and choosing what it is within that book, it is you're going to enforce upon the people around you. What is your criteria for these things which you choose to fight for and these things which you choose to disregard because they would infringe upon your way of life? I mean, these aren't people who are avoiding meat on Friday. These aren't people who are having their daughters stoned for having held hands with the man. These aren't people who are going out trying to sell slaves, although if you spend any time on any message board in America, you come to find out that's something that a lot of people are trying to bring back. It's kind of sickening to think the American dream is housed in this mind.
Yeah, and as a closing note from me, I'll let the Burro do his closing note. The main thing that I think this message is, and our topic and what we wanted to get off our chest with this conversation is that what we don't want to see is prejudice being confused with a belief system for a better way of life. Prejudice does not belong in the same conversation and in the same feeling as what you feel is going to bring you towards enlightenment, because it will not, for you or anyone else.
Ignorance is not faith or righteousness. Being offended does not mean that you have a point. And I want to close up by just saying this. Look, whether black, white, Mexican, Christian, Muslim, atheist, I don't give a fuck. I'm going to step up and I'm going to try to defend anybody who is put in a position of standing before the people around them and demanding that their humanity be recognized. This is some fucking bullshit that you can make eye contact with anybody and decide they are not human because they do not fit your model. Fuck you.
And on that note, folks, we've said our piece on the negative stuff. We said our piece on the serious stuff. The Burro and I are going to go smoke some weed, and we will return with our next topic, which, believe it or not, is the 10 best ways to reuse your sex toys as household items.
And if that's not a metaphor for American news, I don't know what is.
All right, we'll be right back. Stay the fuck tuned to Podcastemonium on 106.9 The Duck.
Quack, quack, quack.
Quiggity quack.
Introducing the great new taste of Coca-Cola. The best tasting Coke in the history of ever. It's a hit. It's a Coke. Coke is it. It's Coca-Cola with a new taste, a new sensation, a new explosion of wonderfulness in your mouth. Go ahead, try it.
It's just how you feel when you know it's for real.
We've got the taste.
It's a kick. It's a hit. It's a Coke. Coke is it.
Okay, guys, we are back here with Podcastemonium, episode number 4. almost our 1 year anniversary, and we're up to episode 4 again. Yes, I know. We're the only quarterly podcast.
We're running Ninja Turtle deep here.
Yes. So in our final segment, we wanted to close out with some fun stuff.
Yeah.
So we are going to, first of all, have a discussion that we just decided about having, which is about indicas versus sativas, because we just smoked a bowl. And we're also going to talk about an article that I pulled up, which I just thought was funny, and I want to get the Burro's visual responses captured via audio. And then we will close up with some thoughts on the second teaser trailer, since we touched on the first one when with the last episode of Podcastemonium.
Podcastemonium, the podcast that stops abruptly in the middle.
Yes. We talked about the first teaser trailer, so we're going to follow up on the second teaser trailer for Star Wars The Force Awakens, episode number 7. Now, let's just talk about this. What did we just smoke?
Okay, so what we just dipped into was some Tahoe OG. California grown, local stuff. We are both 215 medical card holders.
Okay.
So it is legal for us to own, possess, and consume. Some of the legislation that came out of the 90s, Compassionate Care Act, things like that.
Right.
Anyway, I digress. So getting back to it, the brass tacks of it is that it's an indica. It is a very slow, very bodily, very mellow, very low energy type of thing. And that's one of the things that the medical environment has been able to provide is options for the consumer. I mean, I remember back in the days, when it was an illicit substance in high school, things we weren't supposed to have, the big question was, will it get me high?
Yes.
Now, as an adult with a better perspective on my life and the resources around me, I'm able to look at it as something that I can use for the specific effects that I want. I'm normally a very high-strung, high-stress, angry person. And it's had a negative effect on the relationships in my life and just the basic peace of mind that I'm able to carry with on a day-to-day basis. But since moving into the medical cannabis movement and finding such reputable growers and distributors in the area, I've been able to shop by specific effect. And that's how I happened upon the Tahoe.
Nice.
It puts the curb on that negativity.
Yeah, because you've loaned me a couple before that that I didn't know about before, like Durban Poison, which, despite its name, is actually a pretty mild, pretty fun little blend there. But the thing is, like, going back to where we used to get it back in high school, I used to think I was a bit more of a stoner than you were, which could not be more ironic these days.
Well, it's ironic now, but it's something I didn't start doing till I was an adult.
Right.
In school, it wasn't something I used. I didn't know much about it. It was something that I heard of. It was something that was presented to me almost predominantly through either pop culture, through movies and music, or through what attempted to be informative programs turned out to be a load of shit, news channels and Dare.
Yeah.
Things like that. As I got older and I was out in the world, like I said, trying to investigate my surroundings and decide how best to integrate them into my life, I was able to inform myself on cannabis and came to the conclusion that it's pretty darn harmless. And not only that, it can be beneficial to a lot of people. Talking about indica versus sativa, you mentioned Durban Poison. In my earlier days of medical cannabis consumption, I would look into just varieties, trying to find what it was that worked for me. What I found was that the sativas, a very clear, up, energetic, giggly, talkative type of effect, by and large.
But with the reason why some indicas are not as popular with a certain type of people is because the side effects of the sativas were that they could create paranoia.
Right. Well, that's exactly what I was getting to. Is being the anxious, angry person that I was, the sativas would really just manifest themselves into panic attacks for me.
Okay.
So I would consume it, but instead of finding that low, mellow, calm center where I can take a breath and shift a perspective and really think about things, I would just have my brain run away with me, and it would be such a high energy. What was that? Who is there? Oh my God, I just did that. That's not good. To the point where it just make me very nervous, and even worse.
Those are the worst.
It would just make me worse for wear. And so moving into the indicas, I've just kind of, through the aid of medical professionals who have consulted me on such things, I've found what's been able to curb that negativity on my psychological health. Let me conclude it very quickly in this way. We talked about the medical movement, things that are going on. It's becoming more socially acceptable around the country. Most states have some type of medical program. A few states, Washington, Colorado, and Washington, D.C. have legalized full recreation for adults. It's just becoming less of the presented threat that it was over the last 100 or so years. Yeah. One thing a lot of people don't know is that it has been illegal for less than 100 years. It's been legal longer in America than it has been illegal. And going back to our original subject of having an inherent trust of our media, our news, our television outlets.
Beginning with Reefer Madness.
Right. And that was a very big time. I mean, that's when they were really pushing to make marijuana and cocaine illegal right alongside each other. And they tried to do it by associating it with Mexican immigrants. They tried to do it by associating it with black artists, jazz musicians, things like that. They said these are criminal activities undertaken by criminal people. And so the relationship of the prohibition of cannabis and institutionalized racism in America are very closely tied.
This will reinforce our topic, but taking a quick off ramp, you mentioned jazz music. Was this a big reason for jazz music being taken out of so many public educational systems and resulting in hip hop?
Jazz music, hip hop, they're music that is. They're styles of music that have had a hard time getting a lot of credibility in America, and hip hop in particular just came out of trying to find an outlet when these communities were being denied. They wouldn't be included in the art programs. They wouldn't be acknowledged as having a culture or a heritage. And so cities like New York, neighborhoods like Harlem, and then places like Oakland, Los Angeles, where the population of these people are high, and they're able to develop these cultures where it's like, well, this is what we have available to us, and we will still express ourselves. We will still develop in this way. We will still be artistic. We will still have our music.
So the desire for creating music was as great as anywhere else, but the utility of learning how to play instruments, learning how to convey yourself in more classical means of music was not prevalent, so they resulted to what's available in terms of percussion, what's available in terms of poetry, what's available... Think about it. If it's a form of poetry, hip-hop is, in terms of constructing the rhyming patterns.
Right.
If you look at what's available in terms of supporting music, you've got, ripping albums and using sampling and then using beat machines to create a beat and then just reciting poetry.
Yeah. And getting back to the original point, like, absolutely, jazz and hip-hop have been... vilified, presented as delinquent activities, trying to exclude them from the realm of what is considered culture or artistically legitimate or relevant. And that, again, comes in with that just attempt to keep a certain amount of people down in order to comfort the people you want to control. So, I mean, cannabis, there you go.
Cannabis is the fun shit. Back to the main topic before we can choke off this sputtering artery, because we're still having fun with it, but let's face it, we came here to talk about what is the difference between sativa and indica, and you explained about a good fourth of it.
Okay, so sativa and indica are the two predominant varieties. You have cannabis sativa, cannabis indica. Those are the genus and species. They are plants.
And there's a third one that has a non-psychoactive effect.
Cannabis, I want to say ruderalis. It'll be it's hemp, industrial hemp.
Industrial hemp, which is used best for industrial purposes. It does not have a psychoactive effect, but it can be used medicinally.
Right. So these are three plants very closely related to each other. And with the sativas, you have a very straightforward, tall, tree-like plant, spindly leaves. But I would call it hippie cannabis. So it's something that you would smoke and be active with. It's people in Colorado really like because they ski, they snowboard, they go out, they do things. It's a very energetic and imaginative, almost hallucinatory high, hallucinogenic. But it can clash, and it clashed with me very readily with things like anxiety.
Oh, yeah.
And it can cause a lot of paranoia, cause a lot of very unpleasant experiences. It's not something that I wanted to continue at that point.
Well, that's what we would used to call back in our high school high days was harsh mellow.
Right, a harsh mellow. So, I mean, varieties you'd see there would be things like a white haze, white widow, things like that, super silver haze. And then you move over into the indica. The indica plant would come out of like the Indian regions, India, Pakistan, Afghanistan, things like that.
Okay.
Hence the indica. But it has an extra molecule attached to it.
Okay.
So the extra molecule helps slow the metabolization, and it drags it out almost. So
Okay.
it becomes very lower energy, very mellow, very sleepy, very bodily. It's good for lowering stress. People use it for pain, for insomnia, things like that. And when you listen to hip hop music and you hear them talk about the Chronic or the Purple, they got grapes, things like that. They're talking about smoking heavy indicas, trying to bring down the tension and keep it mellow. That's also, you hear about things like lean, promethazine, sipping on perp, sipping on syrup.
Which is a result of the climate, because if you think about the crime and you think about all of the political bullshit of the times.
It's high stress. I mean, you hear old comedians talk about, people, black man will die at 45 of hypertension. I mean, I think it was Chris Rock who said that. You look to the environment around you to supply. Mm-hmm. So there's that. Versus hippies who are happy-go-lucky. People are oppressing us too. No, not to the same degree, nearly.
We just want to be happy, man. We just want to smoke weed and be happy and love each other.
Ultimately, it comes down to, from the medicinal standpoint, the effects you want versus the needs that you have. Mm-hmm. From a recreational standpoint, you could do a lot worse for you. Alcohol, way more dangerous. They always presented cannabis as the gateway drug. Studies showed it's actually alcohol.
Yes. Let me just speak on this briefly. Okay. I'll be quick. As an alcoholic speaking, you've seen this. Mm-hmm. This fucking legal substance that we have is in exponentially more destructive long term than any kind of marijuana plant. Mm-hmm. There's nothing. I used to be, when I was in high school, I wouldn't drink. Mm-hmm. I was avoid it because I come from a family of drunks. Mm-hmm. So I would not touch any kind of alcohol, but I smoked weed like
crazy
as the day is long. Yeah. And the thing is, the reason for that is because we're dealing with a toxic chemical. Mm-hmm. We're dealing with a man-made fucking chemical that is, even though it's naturally produced through the fermentation, distillery, etc. When you were talking about something that is by its own nature toxic versus something that is by its own nature natural and it can be used as an herbal remedy the same way that you would, ingest basil and fucking all your major cooking herbs, is the same fucking thing. It has the same amount of impact on your body. It can have increased heart rate. Mm-hmm. It can have the effects of slowed thought process. All these things are very common, and one thing that we don't think about is the main reason we talk about marijuana the way that we do is because it is psychoactive, as opposed to a lot of our cooking ingredients.
Right.
Yes.
That's a good point to make. I mean, alcohol is way more destructive, but it's openly advertised. It's encouraged. I remember turning 21 and people would actually tell me the first time that I was going into these liquor stores, welcome to the party. Yeah. Whereas, if I were to get caught with a joint on me, it'd be like, what's wrong with you? You're a criminal. You're a delinquent. Mm-hmm. And it's just, again, it's the presentation, it's the environment, and it's also who's profiting from it. Alcohol, liquor, it's a huge billion-dollar industry. It's worldwide. It's culturally everywhere. Accepted. It's ceremonial. You'll find it in church.
Yes.
Whereas
the blood of Christ, red wine.
Right. Whereas cannabis has been vilified for so long, and people, Americans especially, have such a short attention span that we're going off the previous 20 years of information. There's not a single death attributed to marijuana in the history of humanity.
No, never. There's not a single instance of an overdose.
Right. It's medically impossible.
We've seen people overdose on natural elements.
And you can overdose on aspirin, vitamin C, calcium. Things like that are dangerous, but the way that cannabis actually interlocks with our own physiology, it's incapable of killing us. The amount of weed you need to smoke to kill you, you would die of monoxide poisoning before you died of a cannabis overdose or THC overdose.
Which would kill you about 1,000 times later than you would have done the same tests with cigarettes. Mm-hmm. Carbon monoxide is very present in cigarette smoke, and I've been a chain smoker for what year is it? 2015.
Yeah.
So 14 years I've been a chain smoker. Carbon monoxide will kill you from cigarettes so fucking much faster than it ever would from marijuana.
And one of the things that opponents like to reference is Ronald Reagan's famous quote, "We now have definitive proof that marijuana is more dangerous than being exposed to an atomic blast on the Bikini Islands." I paraphrase. Mm-hmm. But what they don't tell you is that it was a completely scientifically incompetent experiment. Mm-hmm. They hooked up gas masks to monkeys and pumped them full of smoke until they suffocated. Yeah. And this is what the president told you pot does. So again, question your sources, do your own research. Fuck the newspapers, fuck televised news, read a book.
Don't listen to us. Listen to one thing exclusively, your own independent study.
Read a book, do some research, read an article, experiment on yourself. You're an adult. It's your body. Take responsibility.
And make your decisions for yourself. So that's the main. So the fun point that we were trying. This is supposed to be a fun topic, by the way. In case anybody forgot, I know I did. That marijuana is essentially something that you probably should experience. at some point in your life. Now, do this at your own personal discretion. Don't do it at anyone else's discretion. If you're listening to two assholes on a podcast that you don't give a fuck about, what we're saying is marijuana has done less damage to me than stuff that is perfectly legal in this country.
And it's done great things for me.
And it's done great things for my best friend who is going through a very good positive phase of his life. And he has marijuana to thank for a lot lower stress levels.
Yeah. And I mean, aside from us on the psychological angle, there's undeniable medical benefits. Looking at you, cancer patients.
Indeed.
Stuff prevents Alzheimer's.
All right, so we've got a couple minutes left in Podcastemonium episode 4. At this point, I want to show the Burro a top 10 list that I thought was pretty interesting.
This is my first time seeing it. Hit me.
All right, so we're going to go all the way to number 1 here.
Oh.
This is the best ways. He got a preview of the images. This is the best ways to reuse sex toys as household items.
Yes,
Check
it is.
this out.
All right.
Item number 1.
Handbrake handle.
As a handbrake handle in your car, you can slide over basically what it looks like something that's designed to either enlarge your penis or it is a dildo that has a hollow center for some reason or another.
Well, isn't everything. So
it's not a condom, I can tell you that.
So all right. Yeah, dildos by their general nature are very handle-like in their shape, and they would be very appropriate as a handbrake or a shift knob. Number 2.
Number 2. We have a penis pump being used to unblock your kitchen sink drain.
Okay, that's actually a better use of a penis pump.
Yeah, because what is it going to do to your dick? You can expand it as far as your current blood flow can contain, and then as soon as that fucking thing is off, it's going to retract to normal size.
As any 12-year-old who had to vacuum their room when they were home alone can tell you, the effects are temporary. And so using a penis pump as a drain unblocker is actually fucking genius.
Yes.
Just make sure you preserve the seal with a proper non-silicone-based lubricant.
Because think about it. Let's think about this from practical use. What would you otherwise do to unblock your garbage disposal?
Plunge it.
You plunge it, you try to do something out of it, but what if you had something that would just lock into a cylindrical location with that much depth to accommodate what you hope your penis was, as a means to apply intense suction to what you hope your penis was, to pull all of the bullshit out of your goddamn garbage disposal. It's fantastic.
Right now, there is some experienced plumbing technician who is going, we have those things. You don't have to buy them with the naked guy on the box.
Right. Next thing up, you have a lampshade for your dildo.
Yeah, if you get a dildo with a suction cup or a large faux nutsack, it will sit upright on its own, and then you can use it as a very effective and decorative lamp. Number 4.
Number 4. We have yet another use for a drain. This time you can use a butt plug to drain your bathroom sink.
Or rather, you can use it to stop the drain in your kitchen or bathroom sink.
Yes.
Yes.
Or yeah, as a brain plug. Yes, exactly.
It's very self-explanatory, and it doesn't necessarily have to be shaped like Buddha. Moving on.
Moving on, another use for a butt plug. You can find one of the really entry-level butt plugs that don't require too much expansion, and you can use it to cork your wine bottles.
That is very creative. It's amazing. I would expect to see this kind of thing on maybe, I don't know, my mom's shelf. But aside from that, I would just save the damn cork. Number 6.
Number 6.
Beer holder.
You can use your blowjob masturbation toy as a koozie. You can actually put it in the freezer for 10 minutes, and then when it comes out frozen, you can wrap it around your beer cans and use it to keep your beer cold.
Fleshlight as a refrigerated sleeve. That is, wow. That's genius.
That's making use of your $80 go far beyond you ever planned.
What a strange product endorsement.
Yes.
Hi, I'm Stoya, and you put a Coke in me.
Pen holder. Now, what we have in this picture
is atrocious.
And probably a great disrespect to females worldwide.
And probably a trigger warning. Number 8.
Well, let's just describe what it is. It says it is a pen holder. What we have here is a toy that is basically 1/8 of a woman provided with a vagina and anal cavity intact. In this case, used to store your writing utensilary.
And you could have just used a 5-cent can.
Yeah.
Way to use your money.
Orange juicer. You can also use a butt plug. This is the first time we talked about a butt plug. You can use a butt plug to juice oranges and other citrus fruits.
I'm actually really impressed with this one because it requires a bit of creativity and a desperate desire for orange juice.
Yes. Orange juice is good for your blood flow. Just use a butt plug.
Just eat the damn fruit.
Yeah, right. Just eat the fucking orange. You can use a dildo as a doorstop.
That is the most practical use I've seen so far, and I would actually consider applying this in my own home.
Just in case you find any dildos, like, well, we can stop our doors with it.
Just replace the metal spring-loaded coil with a, let's go with a medium to medium firm, let's say 8-incher, and, well, you got yourself a pretty cushy landing for your door. Number 10.
Hard cocks are good for furniture. Number 10.
I'm not even...
You can use that same thing that we were just talking about a few minutes ago as a pin holder.
The eighth of a murder victim.
Yeah, as a towel holder by just shoving it up in there. It'll apparently hold your dish rags for quite a while.
At this point, I wouldn't call it so much a use or a life hack as I would just call it Exhibit A.
My God.
There's no... What the hell?
This is like...
If you ever walk into anybody's house and you find a disembodied replica of genitals and an anus holding a large spoon or dish towel, just leave.
Just leave.
Just
man.
leave.
This is an interesting case because we've gone from one extreme to the other. We've talked about using a butt plug to juice oranges.
A completely benign practice.
Yeah, and now we're looking at what looks like a crime scene of the worst fucking, like, fuck with your head type.
This is an Ed Gein photograph.
Yeah. This is disturbing.
It is really, yeah.
But in all honesty, folks...
Who can cook in that fucking kitchen? Jesus.
Somebody bought some of these parts to be used in a sexual practice, but they have household uses. So long as that your house is you're willing to realize that people who look at your house think that you are a serial murderer.
Oh my God.
You got dicks holding up your doorways. You've got vaginas holding up your towels.
Well, if you got dicks holding your doors open, you're just an eccentric billionaire. But if you have disembodied vaginas holding your spoons, I mean, there's just oh my God. I can't even begin to piece this kind of shit together. That's some like top level billionaire. Please don't allow the cameras into my home bullshit.
My God. Okay, so we are just 5 minutes past the 2 o'clock hour. Last notes. What do you think about the Star Wars Episode 7 teaser trailer number 2?
I'm excited. I'm still continuing to have the initial excitement of, well, the nostalgia factor. We're seeing familiar characters this time. In this trailer in particular, we're seeing Han and Chewie. Mm-hmm. As opposed to the trailer or the trilogy we don't really talk about because we don't.
Yes.
But I'm excited, not only because of the characters returning and we're seeing a progression of the story, but also because we're seeing an expansion of the Jedi mythos. And from what I understand, a lot of the effects going on are more practical than CG.
More practical. From what I've heard, now I have not verified this, but from what I've heard from very trustworthy sources who give more of a fuck about CG versus practical than I do, allegedly, the rolling droid is a practical effect.
I'm going to call him Herbie.
Yeah, if that is true, that is fucking movie magic making its long-awaited comeback. Because the thing about this, why do we hate CGI?
It's so distracting.
It's not even just, well, okay.
It's distracting. It's a cost-saving effort. It's circumventing a lot of the art. I'm not saying that anybody who works in CG is not an artist.
Absolutely not.
But it is something that came out as a revolutionary technology and has since been fallen back on as a cut-corner dime saver.
Yes, and in a time when it does not belong in that category, because let's face it, CG animated films have been fantastic.
They're top-notch.
Pixar and DreamWorks have done wonderful works with CG animation.
I just watched Wreck-It Ralph again the other day.
Yeah, I just watched Big Hero 6 for the first time the other day, and I loved it. Mm-hmm. These are great works of cinematic art, and CG absolutely has a place.
It's at the center of the art style itself.
But when you are talking about a live-action movie that has physical actors, that has physical sets, that is using film stock or any type of shooting medium to photograph something of real life, CG doesn't naturally fit. The reason why CG doesn't naturally fit is because our eyes can kind of see when something is real and something. Very often it's the most crude practical effects that work the best.
Right.
And because it is something that there's a texture and something that feels relatable. As soon as something becomes so smooth and so streamlined and so just perfect, your mind can instantly catch it.
To use, for example, Jurassic Park, a movie that everybody looks at as the big CG landmark movie, there's only 7 minutes of CG in that 2-hour movie.
It's mostly done. It's puppets.
Right.
It's a fucking marionette puppet. The T-Rex is a giant marionette puppet.
Right. And that's what I'm saying is it's applied with subtlety.
Yes.
It's applied with restraint. It's not being used instead of effects. It's being used where effects cannot succeed.
Yes. The CG is an excellent aid to practical effects because you can use it to hide whatever blemishes or whatever giveaways that practical effects ever has. It all comes down to being smoke and mirrors in the end.
And on a side note, the Queen alien from Aliens, I mean, her crane operating her is in every single shot, and you never see it.
You never see it. It's been there the entire time. Every single time when you're looking at the scene, you're watching the Queen alien fighting Ripley and the power loader, but the very mechanism that's operating the Queen is right there, and you don't know it. And that's brilliant.
So, I mean, practical effects all day, it provides that depth, that realism, that sense that we could be there, that we attach to. And CG can do a lot to bolster and enhance that effect. But
Well,
as soon as it's used to replace that effect,
Yes.
it becomes a distraction.
Let's give CG a little bit of credit for once, though. I don't know if you've seen the new Planet of the Apes movies yet. Not yet. But this is where I have to give CG a little bit of credit for how it was used. It wasn't because it was CG animation that was built into computer designed. It was literally CG as a means to communicate one real organism to another real organism.
Right.
What they did is they took the physiology of an actual ape, of an actual chimpanzee and an actual orangutan and an actual gorilla, and they used not only the skeleton, they used the musculature, they used the skin patterns, they used the hair patterns to recreate digitally an ape. But instead of animating that through traditional animation means, it was motion captured. What you're seeing in those movies is an actor reskinned as a digital ape.
Right. And
That's why those movies look so spectacular.
right. And practical effects would have failed where the CG have carried it out.
But the thing is, a CG is a step between one real thing and another real thing. You've taken the real thing, digitally encoded it in this way, and recreated it in the computer. Basically, took a human actor and made it perform that ape.
Another great example is Roger Rabbit.
Yeah, exactly. Oh yeah, Roger Rabbit. I mean, that's old school cell animation. That's going back to literally ink and paper and on a cell sheet, drawing and then integrating that directly into a live action environment.
I mean, that's a great example of people having to perform roles that didn't exist on the camera.
Exactly. So I mean, there's a brilliant marriage that can happen between CG and practical. But so all of that to basically defend CG takes us back to why practical in the new Star Wars is fantastic. And to understand that, let's just look at the old Star Wars prequels. It was all CG.
Everything looked new, and it was supposed to take place 20, 30 years before the older movies.
Yeah.
And on top of that, it all was obviously not in the same room as these people.
Everything looks so organic.
You look to the return from the Death Star at the end of A New Hope, and there's a hangar full of X-Wings.
Yes.
And the actors are climbing out of them. They're leaning against them. You can see the dirt. You can see the grime. The light plays off of them. They're not shiny. These are old. These machines have been to war, and that's what I'm talking about.
Yes. You're immediately familiar with it. Whereas as soon as we get to the prequels, all of a sudden it's like everything is pristine and perfect and is circular and it's not as rigid, and you didn't really believe that there was a rigid structure inside of any of those shapes.
Yeah. So getting back to it, I'm excited for the new Star Wars because I'm going to get to reunite with characters whom I last saw celebrating a victory over the death of tyranny.
Yes.
Although if the trailers are to be read literally, then bum bum bum, it has
Something
returned.
has come back because we saw the stormtroopers in front of that giant flag looking like Nazis almost.
The coolest fucking thing from that entire trailer, I'm going to go ahead and say right now, is the crashed Star Destroyer.
Yeah, that opening shot was amazing.
That is, oh my god.
Because at first, I don't know how it hit you, but when I first saw that, I was looking, okay, I see a desolate Tatooine landscape. I see a speeder moving. I see a speeder moving across what looks like some mountains and some hillsides, and holy shit, that's actually a crashed Star Destroyer.
It reminded me of Pacific Rim, where they rebuild the cities around the carcasses of the kaiju. Because what you're seeing is a culture that is adapted to surviving the greatest war they've ever seen.
Yes.
And so that right there. I'm intrigued. I want to see these characters come back. I want to see the stories in their full conclusion. And the effects so far, they have me sold on just that same amount of fantastic. Oh my God, I'm seeing into another world.
Totally. And if you think about it, when we saw the Chrome Troopers, and we realized that what we're seeing is a build up to something that's even stronger than the Empire was, potentially. That's what it suggests anyway.
We're seeing the Force.
We're seeing the Force recreating something huge.
The Sith is a cult.
Exactly. The Sith as Nazi Germany circa 1945. That's my favorite shot of the entire second trailer, was all the stormtroopers taking their form in front of that giant flag in the back. It was like, dude, this is like Triumph of the Will type shit. This is Nazi Germany, but they're stormtroopers. Mm-hmm. And so something has risen from the ashes of obscurity as a remnant of the Empire and as a remnant of the Sith that represents the next direction, and they're recreating the Empire as something even more fierce than it was before. And with this being the beginning of a new trilogy, what does that mean?
I think it means that what we're seeing is not necessarily the resurgence of the Empire, but rather the resurgence of the Empire's mentality in the form of the new rebels.
Yes. Oh, fuck. That could even... Oh, dude, that's awesome. That could totally be.
So this has been tons of fun. I've enjoyed it. I hope you have too, Radioland.
Yeah, this is awesome, guys. So episode 4, Podcastemonium, we could obviously talk about this all night, but you know what? We do have to call it up. It has been 2 hours and 15 minutes, which is by an hour and 10 minutes our longest show to date.
It is way more than PBS would ever allow us for your contribution from viewers like you.
All right, guys. We will see you very soon. We plan to be back with another one of these sooner than later.
If we keep up with the pattern, we'll see you around 4th of July.
Sounds good, folks. Thank you for listening to Podcastemonium episode 4. This is Emperor Corndog.
And Burro saying, "Hail Satan."
Yes, later. Testing like a son of a bitch.
Testing for VT. Testing. 3 knuckles deep. Can you hear me? This is Brown Bomber getting through to Slick Ricky.
Fucking bullshit!